Oh, Shauna.
Morning, everybody. I'd like to thank everybody for coming and also those of you that are on Zoom. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Approval of the agenda. Any late items for the agenda? All right. Recommend that the District of Sicamous Select Finance Committee meeting agenda December 13th, 2023 be approved as circulated. Could I have a mover?
Sure.
Mayor Anderson. Seconder. Siobhan, Rich, thank you. All those in favor? Carried. All right. Adoption of the minutes. Recommended that the minutes of the District of Sicamous Select Finance Committee meeting held on December 7th, 2023 be adopted. Can I have a mover? Siobhan, seconder, Mayor Anderson.
Yep.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you, carried. Okay, just to let you know, we have a couple counselors away at previous commitments for their portfolios, and Malcolm's on holidays and he's on Zoom. So, yeah, so moving right along into new business, we have a presentation from the Visitor Info Services. Sheila, you have the floor. Take it away. Morning.
So I didn't want anybody getting a little upset because there's 44 slides. I'm going to go through this, don't worry. So I'm not moving it.
Is the microphone on? I just want to make sure people online can hear. Yes.
Yeah. So it's not uncommon for chambers of commerce to operate as an sector. That is very common. And especially in small communities where we have seasonality and person focused businesses. So we are very much like the rest of our partners throughout the region, throughout the province, throughout the country, actually. In addition, because we are a nonprofit organization, it gives us an opportunity to be able to access funding and support for ourselves, for the business and for other projects that we'd like to do. Additionally, because we work with a lot of partners, that allows us to offer enhanced visitor services. So, just so we know where we're going, we're going to talk a little bit about the past, what we've done this year, and talk about some of those partners and how that's allowed us to improve our visitor services.
Sheila, can you just wait for 1 second? I'm just not sharing appropriately. There. Right. Move up the space for a minute. There we go.
Okay. Well, this year we've welcomed in some new board members and actually have a new president as well. And said goodbye to a longtime president in Victoria County. So our new president is Samantha Dutt. And a couple of our board members are here with us today. Alden Crowley still remains on the board, and we've got 2 new ones with Holly and Megan as well. We've got a couple of new faces in the visitor center, as you know, that Hannah has gone off and had her baby. So we've brought on Jessica McCabe, and we've also got Christine Dunbar, who's in there this morning. And both of them work with me with regard to the visitor center and other programs that we run. There's definitely been some new changes in our space. In our partnerships have allowed us to do this, so you can see how we rearranged the museum to make it more accessible for everybody to get through, but it's also very easy for people to get to us and it brings people. You can just see some of the people that we've been working with over the last year. First and foremost, that really has been a great project for us. And for them, the museum, as you all know, was open 65 days a year for 4 hours a day up until we moved in. And over the last few years, we've been encouraging the museum to make some changes, to develop a presence in there. But it was very obvious that the folks at the museum were really getting tired and lacking in resources. which we were able to accomplish. And we did form a much broader partnership where now the museum is run on a daily basis by the Chamber of Commerce, with the museum board doing more of an advisory board to us. And so we got to see the changes in there, and the feedback that we're getting so far is quite positive. There's still a lot of work to be done, but we're really excited about what we're already seeing. You can see actually some of the other things that we've included in here, just to let everybody know that we had some new cabinetry put into the museum that was paid for with a grant. And that was built right here in town at TA Structures. Those big green boards that you see there, they were also done with a local business. 365 Design did those. So we try to encourage a lot of local businesses to get access to any of the projects that we had an opening just a week ago, and our mayor came and did a ribbon cutting. We had some speeches from some dignitaries, some pictures there of Gordon Mackey, and he's really been the driving force behind that museum for many, many years, and it's really important to him that the museum continues on for perpetuity. He has ensured that it will by setting up an endowment fund that he's left to the Chamber of Commerce to manage, so that this will continue. So each year there will be funding provided to keep the museum open. Right now, he personally provides that funding to the tune of $6,000 a year, so the staff. Our other partnerships are with the DOS DevCorps, so I do a lot of work with Carly. We've worked together the last couple of years with this guide, which we're all very proud of. She's done a great job this year. We worked together on some of our other business programs, which is Biz Before Biz, which was really successful. We knew that all those people would come out at 7 o'clock this morning, but they did. So that was really important for us to see. So we will offer more of those in the coming year. So you can see, look how many have showed up. We did free breakfast. So and we also had a partnership with the DOSTC and Shuswap Tourism. So if you've been to the visitor center, you can see those great big pictures behind their desk. That's our effort to create our 4 seasons in our community, and we were supported through both of them in order to do those pictures. So they're local. Some of them are from people who've actually taken them and given them to us. We've had people ask us for copies of them, so they do really make an impact when you go in. We also have a very strong relationship with the DOS, obviously. So we had our breakfast with the mayor, which we've done for several years. This year with our new mayor. So Colleen was able to talk about the priorities and her take on what the council is going to be working on and give her perspective. We did that up at Mayor Hills this year. And it was well attended to. Even the police showed up. They were required, but they did show up. We also partnered with the district and the St. Louis Eagles this last year when we hosted an AGM here in town for the KIJHL, which is the governing body for the hockey league. It was quite successful and brought 20 teams here and who were really overwhelmed with what they saw and how impressed they were with our small. We worked together and have done for several years on Family Fun Day. This is always a great day in the park for people to come together, and we see lots of families there. We also see visitors come. We have some families that come every year just to people. It is their greatest accomplishment. I believe these families, they come with pails, buckets, and shovels and schematics on these great big huge sandcastles that are built. But it's a really nice day, and it's a great partnership for us. Music in the Park, that's always been one of our favorites. We had a real tough year with Music in the Park this year because of the weather and the snow. So we've put in some parameters for next year to make sure that that's the day for everybody's buck and that we get the best opportunities to provide music in our park inside. That was just some of our partners with as well as the DOS and staff meeting support it has. We have business members that also do a nightly sponsorship and help support that. Some of the other chamber initiatives that we have, the business directory that we have come up with, that's got every business in town in it, not just chamber members. We've got a new advocacy committee that has been started to work together with our, and with our district council to make sure that we are all very clear on what everybody's hoping to see for the future in our community. Some of the things that we were talking about, working on together, a sickness training center, sickness district rec center, and employee retention, those are the 3 priorities for the chamber based on what our members told us. You'll see the new pop-up is out in the hallways that last year we had 125 members, which is pretty significant for a community like ours in comparison to some of the bigger communities that we're surrounded by. We went back to making a map that we've done years in the past because our hotels really liked that tearaway map. We had a really nice shiny one. We thought we were doing the right thing, figured out we weren't. You can't write on it, so that wasn't what they wanted. So the chamber was able to address those needs, and it's something that we can print in-house, so it really does help us. Some of our other initiatives have all been to the biz after biz, so those ones are pretty popular for a couple this year. One of the things that we did a little different this year is we had a job aware session here. We invited all of the high school students to come in and meet with, we had 10 businesses in the room. We had over 100 kids come in here. It was really encouraging to see. As we all strive to keep people in our community, it's important that we let our students know what types of jobs are here. I think many of them walk into the grocery store, the only job here back here. They don't really think about what it was that they could do. So that was important that they come in like this. They had the opportunity to speak to employers, talk about the types of jobs that they actually offer. And then they were to go back to the school and look up a particular occupation and see what it took for them to actually get that job. Hopefully that will encourage some of them to get an education and stay here, which solve their housing problem, and they can still live with their parents, like most of their 30.
Everyone wants.
Really a good idea. I think the employers were quite impressed with the number of kids that came through. The high school was very excited about it. It's a little different than a job fair. There were some employers that were offering job opportunities for them. So it was a win. Later that evening, we had a biz after biz at the day. We had Rob Markville for Community Futures come in and give a bit of a talk to our members as well. So that's what the job fair or the job award is. This year we have done our very best to help our businesses here get some activity going on. So one of our members actually donated a $500 cash prize. So it's an incentive for people to shop local for the entire month. That will be awarded this Friday night. So there's a ballot box in our office that's actually just jam-packed full. So it's really exciting to see how many people have been so proud to come in and say, I shop local. So we're hoping that our businesses are seeing that. And that's open to all members, all business members. So restaurants, it didn't matter if you want to pay your insurance at Hub, then you could put it in there. We did a one-day shop local event as well, which took place on the night of the light up parade. So everybody was included in that. Didn't have to be a chamber member at the business, just had to volunteer to be involved. They provided a gift, and at the end of the light up parade, we did a draw. So anybody that shopped that day shot a QR code, entered the draw, and was awarded with a great big basket full of local products. And just another idea, as well as the light up. So this last couple of weeks has just been one contest after another. But the light up, the town did the light up for homes, and we did it for businesses, and it was quite popular, and it was nice because again, the community selected stuff. That's right. Turn up for our business excellence boards this year. They were a little bit different because we had the public actually did the nominations, and the public actually did the voting. So we stayed out of it and just sort of watched how it went down, and it was really interesting to see the number of votes and how much people were engaged, and really making sure that they spoke up about businesses because they had to give us a reason why as well. So it was really nice to see, and I think the outcome the night of the awards, some of our winners were quite overwhelmed and touched that they had actually won. So we had 68 people in attendance. A lot of different people came out. That's really nice to see as well. Me and Bailey was given an award, that was the only award that was given out by.
Oh, yeah.
the paper. So it was
Thank you.
like a genie went on top of it, an agreement to help us out, as he sponsored the meal that night. And community sponsored awards, and that's something that I believe is going to be in the year. So I'm happy about that. I don't know how many of you are aware of the small business rebate that's out there right now. We have promoted it, so if people are looking for some funding to help them with security measures or had some damage done, they can access funds through the BC Chamber and they can do this. Well, the information and we'll continue to follow that. So now what you want to know about the visitor center. So this summer, as I said, we've had a few challenges with the fire. So we were really hoping for a much better summer this year. It didn't actually happen for us. But we did do a few new things that helped us out as well. We've had ambassador training in the past. This year, it was very hard to get employers to get the time together to have staff. So what we did is we went to them individually, and we created a quick little card. You can see we've got little QR codes on it, so then you have people who said, where can I put my trailer? So it doesn't matter if you're pumping gas arena, or you're talking boat, or you're working gas station. This is a quick reference, and we offer that to all of our person businesses that we would come out and share that with them. And again, we print that in house and we'll update it as required. We had our info on Go team. This was the very first year we've had students all from our community. In the past, we've had a mix. Interestingly, this didn't work out as well as everybody thought because these students know everybody. And the ones that come out of town, they don't, so they don't have a following. So in the future, there'll be some changes to how they're here. Lesson learned. We took them out most of our tourism sites so that they could have firsthand knowledge and be able to talk very freely about what the offerings were out there. All of the students, the staff, including myself, we are all certified for training in our tourism industry through Destination BC, so they all get that as well. They offer the snack shack out at the beach park. Again, that's progress for us. We've learned an awful lot about how to run that, who to run with, and what the requirements are there. And we also had our students attend the Friday night market so that they were able to give out information there. What we're looking forward to next year, obviously, we're always looking forward to the breakfast with the mayor. We'll obviously have some new things to talk about, more biz after biz activities, and definitely working on music in the park. Like I said, we've had discussions about that already. Just so you know about some of the stats that we have had over the last couple of years, this is what's important to all of you, I'm sure. You can see the difference between 2021, 22, and 23. So these are total visitors from January till September. So you can see last year was better. This year obviously was good, but not too bad either. Yeah, we lost about 3 to 4 good weeks with the summer. So looking at that and not having 4 music in the park, not too bad. Our roaming, same thing. Not too bad at all. Our roaming, so that's anybody we talk to on the street, that music in the park. The other ones are people strictly in our office that come to our office that we count. Those are the types of staff that we're looking at. Probably drills down a lot more because she works at the hotels. We don't. We are responsible to Destination body counts, where they're from, what they're looking for, whether it be first washroom, where can I stay, is the road closed, those are the questions. Looking at it, spoke to 1,227 and lost all that time, still not too bad this year. And I like always to see where people are coming from because that fluctuates every year. So a lot of local, the region, and a lot of people that would stop in and say, I'm just driving through Poland today, I'm stopping. Heard a lot about it. What do we do? So you can see it's quite a few, 619 just from BC. Alberta numbers dropped off again, not surprising because we sent them home for 4 weeks. So other parts of Canada, and we're definitely seeing that rise in Europe. Only 16 came to the door that said and identified as being in the United States. Again, another interesting one to look at for us. types of information that were asked for, attractions. So of all of those people that came in, we recorded that 450 of them wanted to know what they could do while they were here. 600 were in directions, 496 food, and others were for their park, for the staff room, for the hot shops. The district includes Chamber of Commerce has provided the CAO and CFO a copy of our financial statements. We've requested $2,000 for the visitor structure increase to $72,000 for the year. We have been running the visitor center now for ever. So at the same time, we are looking for this to be a longer contract and ask to do this in 3 years so that we can make our budget and our plans accordingly, not change our obligation. We will still provide all the financial summaries, we will still keep our application, but it just makes it a lot less work for all of us. In addition, we are looking at rising costs of everybody else, especially when it comes to employer costs. We are looking to solidify a 2.5% raise in each of those years as well. When you do, I believe you've all got a copy of the budget. When you do see it, you'll also see that it's less than what we operated with last year. And that's because we're making those significant changes in our organization with the reduced hours with myself and the changes in staff. So we are trying to be fiscally responsible and believe that we have done a good job and that we've done so for many years and to continue. That's it for me.
Great. Thank you very much, Sheila. That was very, very great presentation. Questions? Anybody, any counselor or have any?
No, I think you guys did a great job. It's lots of information, lots going on. Thank you so much.
Okay, Malcolm, you're okay there?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you for checking.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, Sheila. That's a great presentation. We always like to hear what you did over the season and look forward to working with you. We'll take everything into consideration in the budget and as we'll move forward. Bianca, you go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to get everyone's flavor, so we're drafting up the new agreement. Right now, the preliminary draft was our same 1-year draft. I'm wondering if council could discuss the 3-year option that Sheila just talked about. The draft here right now has everything highlighted, just the tweaks that have been made since the previous agreement. So yeah, mostly you guys are stuck with the highlights, the changes, if you've reviewed them, that's fantastic. If you would like to discuss the option for the 3-year with a 2.5, we usually do CPI to maximum 2.5.
Yeah.
That's usually our standard, and CPI hasn't been below 2.5 for a while, so I could add that wording in there if council so chooses.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Bianca. Ian, you go ahead first and
Yeah, I was just gonna touch on that before we left. I think 3-year contract is more than reasonable. These service agreements, you have to have some sort of, knowledge you're gonna keep going so you can make your staffing, your planning, and it affects the entire organization. So what I've seen for all of these sort of things is it's pretty standard to have that. I mean, the one thing you could put in there if you wanted to was, a 1 or 2-year notice if you're gonna cancel it or whatever. But I mean, from my perspective, the work that they're doing on our visitor services side, it's really good work that I think we would have great struggles if we ever wanted to do it ourselves. I question whether we could. We're into so many different things and we have so many different priorities in front of council that having this off that is off on the side that the chamber can do, that also helps them and their stability. And it is kind of a unique little small town kind of arrangement for sure. I mean, this is not Vancouver where you'd have the chamber separate from everything else, but small towns work together. And I think this is just another good example of it. But yeah, I would support the 3 years for sure. And the 2.5 is more than fair. I mean, I can't remember the last time we had a year of just 2.5 inflation. Like we just know just going through our budget, man, I would kill for just 2.5% increases on a lot of these things. So yeah, I think that's makes sense to me.
okay, thanks, Ian. Siobhan?
Through the chair, I support the 3-year and I appreciate what the chamber does and they work hard and even in their presentation is fabulous because it's not just like, hooray, look at us. It's like, okay, here's where we can do a little change and, we learned this and I really appreciate, that guidance too, where we're going, okay, I think it's awesome. So, we need you here. We want you here. And I think making it 3-year and 2.5 is beyond reasonable in today's economy. So I'm in favor.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, I can just close by saying I do support a 3-year. It kind of ties in with our term as well, and the new council can carry forward, whoever's the new council at the end of the 3rd-year term. And yeah, you can plan a little better and look into the future. So yeah, well, I guess Bianca, anything else? Oh, sorry, Colleen.
Yeah, and I agree with this as well. I'd like some guidelines in it in case we do shift some stuff or make some changes. Have the ability to do that. With, as an example, music in the park, the chamber does it now. Perhaps it should be a tourism thing. There might be some pieces that fit differently together. So I don't want us locked into anything. I want us to be able to, after Carly does her presentation, have a conversation about it too. Maybe there's better ways to work together. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, you're doing a great job and Carly's doing a great job, but I think we should just leave some space to make some change as well. So, but I do support the 3-year.
Thank you, Colleen. Bianca, anything in closing?
The decision's not being made today anyways, so we can hear Carly out. This, I'm hoping to bring back to the next regular council meeting for approval for the agreement, so we have plenty of time to clean up everything and.
I just have more of a question, Mr. Chair. This is just, we're talking about the visitor services side of this in this contract, right? Correct? That also include music in the park.
Music in the park is always being included in the contract. We could do 2 separate contracts if that's what council would like to do. That is an option. You could do music in the park as a 1-year, but that's between us and the chamber on what makes.
I mean, my preference, I think again, small town, we all know each other in this room. Everybody wears 5, 6 different hats in this whole community. So, I mean, if that was if there was a desire to change it or council wanted to change it or whatever, I think we can have that conversation, right? But I think whatever we do is that there should be at least a year heads up about it. So, we're obviously not changing anything for next year. If that was something that there was some sort of synergies or whatever, then, we just got to be respectful along those lines, just because it takes a while to plan these things. And I think we could have the conversation around that, but I think they're doing a great job. But I'm, hearing ideas is fine too. So, yeah.
Thank you, Ian. All right.
For clarity, there is 2 points in here. One, that it may be amended by mutual consent, and then there's also a 1 for termination in there. So if we had to, like point 18 and 19.
Yeah, well, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd say 19, there's no way that we should ever
Do it in a month.
cancel anything in a month.
Yeah.
Not fair to anybody. I think it should be a year. Because like I said, you're planning these things out a year in advance, and that's my opinion on it. And I think you're right, the agreement can be amended mutual consent. I think we'd want to get there anyways. I don't think we want to have anything where it wasn't mutual. It just makes for a bad kind of business arrangement. So yeah, my suggestion is say 1 calendar year for termination for sure.
Great. Thank you, Ian. Yeah, I like what you guys put your heads together and made some changes to the agreement, and it looks really good. And but yeah, I do agree a little bit longer term on the notice. Okay, well, thank you very much, Sheila. You and your team have done a great job. Thanks for putting that forward. Okay, moving right along. Bianca, or no, Carly, you're up next. Thank you.
Share this one.
Thanks for being patient there, waiting.
All right, good morning. I get to see you guys twice today. So for today, it's just based on our projections for 2024 from both tourism and economic development. So you guys in your packages did see the actual budget, but Bianca reminded me that not everybody lives inside my head, so I did include last minute a more of an explanation so that it helps sort of explain what it is that I'm tying all of these figures to. So for tourism, we'll start there. My total budget projection for 2024 is $214,000. And what I'm looking at in terms of significant breakdown pieces are from May to December, I'm actually going to bring on some much needed help to deal with capacity and planning with some of the campaigns and activities that I had. With the Tourism Advisory Committee, we really sort of dialed it in and said quality over quantity. So we spent the last 3 years really laying some wonderful foundational pieces and getting sort of the guts built, and now we can finally move up and start bringing more of a spectacle and even more eyes and heads in beds into town. So how we're going to achieve this is through some training and industry events. We had a very popular development corporation initiative working on or inviting businesses, based on feedback from our business walks on what they require for support services. So as a partnership with the DevCorp in terms of budget splitting, we're going to offer those again from January through March. And feedback has been on Canva Advanced and AI automation. So looking at how to incorporate AI into the business, looking at e-commerce, and then I'm going to be doing a full audit and execution on Google listings. So where we've done this before as a tourism initiative to really ensure that our tourism businesses have, the proper Google listing, Yelp, TripAdvisor, all the things that people organically go to when they're trip planning. Now we're going to do that from a development corporation side as well. So those will be happening, as I said, in the first 3 months. Travel and conference. The BC Tourism Industry Conference is in Victoria. It's a key industry conference, an annual one that happens. And then the Thompson Okanagan Tourism Summit. So dials it in and it brings together industry professionals just from our area, and that is in October. Website, social media, and marketing materials. So our website is now at a spot where we're getting really good traffic in our key months. So we'll invest in some SEO on those off-season months as we start to build our shoulder season. Facebook and Insta are growing monthly, so it's really good, it's really positive. We're gonna just continue on that. We've got access to some additional content through local providers that are really gonna help amplify our video offering, which is, as everybody knows, video is really out trending photo in a lot of cases. So continue to capitalize on the new assets that are coming to town, the pump track, the bike park, etc. Getting the sort of building the story content around those. So investing in that camera when they're actually digging and laying in the track, so that we have this wonderful marketing story to take to the media about sort of where we were and how we got to where we're going. Research and evaluation. So we're going to invest in, Sheila talked about data and what we're doing in terms of driving our plans, and the Tourism Advisory Committee, I'm sure can speak to the amount of data that I send, and sometimes it's a bit onerous and bulky. Destination BC has taken our feedback, and they're actually investing in new data source and helping rural communities. Their focus is all about seasonal dispersion, geographic dispersion, and working with rural communities to get more relevant data. Because right now, a lot of the tourism data we're getting is from the Thompson Okanagan, which sometimes doesn't help our traveler patterns or traveler distinctions. So we'll leverage the free source. That's why it's only $2,500, but we're going to invest in hotel data. So right now, STR is a BC Hotel Association data set, but you need 4 properties. It's quite cost prohibitive. So we're going to use the MRDT funding to go back into the hotels to get our sample size up to 4 hotels, so that at least we can pull the data that will help all of the collective hotels understand traveler patterns and where they rank amongst BC properties, provincial properties, and then Thompson Okanagan, and maybe help their marketing campaigns, so we can guide them a little bit more strategically when they are building their packages or aligning with some of the campaigns that we have. The signature sport and culture event. So this is where I did shift a lot of our funding into, is to look at those shoulder season events. So looking at something for the pump track, still supporting Funky Fest and the Sikimu Sled Film Festival. So any of the other financial dollar amounts going into supported events will now become in-kind donations through swag and marketing, so that we can focus our financial support behind some of our bigger events. Media advertising and production. So this is a flat projection, because we are in a contract with our billboard and our Kelowna Arrivals digital advertising. Once those contracts are up, we are gonna look at a shift in where we allocate the media advertising production. We've done it for a couple of years, and we've got some good numbers, but I think it's time for a refresh, and that's a significant chunk that we'll look to reinvest based on feedback from the Tourism Advisory Committee and other data that we're looking at over the year. Consumer focused asset development, that's what I mentioned, where we're, the branded, the keychains, the fun stuff that we like to give away. We'll continue looking at what's trending for the next year. We've got a $2,000 credit with Foreign Print from a failed towel order, so that ultimately will give us a nice healthy budget to order some stuff in. And then special projects, the returning ones are the geocache tour with a lesser investment, because we've now we've got the locations, we've got the actual tangible assets to keep and maintain our geo tour. We're gonna add 10 new caches, so that'll bring us up to 35 caches in total, which again is very enticing for people that have already been part of the tour to come and start spending more money. I'll update this afternoon more about the geo tour. The visitor guide, again, we're doing some minor tweaking on the guide, but it'll be reprinted and out in market early in 2024. A new investment is the BC Bird Trail. So we went in on a partnership with Shuswap Tourism and Salmon Arm Economic Development Society. I believe you guys have all seen the media coverage where we are one of 14 new outposts. So birding is becoming this new seasonal trend with travelers that have the disposable income to go around. And we wanted to make sure that we got in on this 3-year program because it's a DBC cooperative partnership funding. So for a 3-way split, now I'll be working, I've talked with DS as they're building trails or looking at opportunities around town. We know where our key bird sites are. So now what we'll do is start investing in the assets to potentially have platforms developed and more informational signage so that as people are walking around, let's say the nature trail, we can provide them with that information outside of just the digital assets that will attract them to those areas. Staying Safe in the Shoe is another program we're working on with Salmon Arm and Shuswap Tourism. And this is going to be a direct impact program for our hoteliers in May and October. So it's all about having the hotels provide a discount to come and stay and save in the shoe. So looking at things like the bird trail, other events and experiences that are happening and offsetting that cost through MRDT funding. So we've done that in the past with Renew in the Shoe and we've revamped that program. The accommodators really like it because they can market to their existing clientele and new clientele without having to feel that pinch in those tight months where we offset that cost of that discount. The real-time beach camera. So this one I'm really excited about. It's going to be interesting working with the STP group where we can safely install a live webcam like your guys' traffic cam to show and market that when people are wondering what it's like in Sycamoose. We had a lot of feedback from industry businesses saying, I'm tired of being the, that info person where the people are calling me like, should we come, we heard you're on fire. How do we combat that? There were so many days that it was just stunning here that if we had a real-time camera that shows the beach being busy, the beautiful sunsets, the beautiful sunrises, etc., it will hopefully help to, allow our businesses to point people to that and say, hey, you want to come out for the day, check out our, our beautiful scenery. And then working with the visitor center on, they did a wonderful job maintaining the geocache, delivering magazines. So entering into another fee for service with them for next year. So any questions on the tourism budget? There's some more detailed.
Anybody have any questions, Colleen?
Yeah, I do, Carly. We're very fortunate to have the BC 55 Games this September. Is there an opportunity for this to be home to that event, or do they share the wealth? Do they go from community to community?
Through the chair. So how that process started 2 years ago with Salmon Arm going and approaching and putting in the full application package. And at that time they came to Sycamoose saying, can you satisfy our requirements? So the center or the applicants already have to satisfy the accommodation needs and the venue needs. So in terms of Sycamoose hosting it, I don't see why we couldn't, because it would be that, we would just leverage Salmon Arm, but it does go to different communities each year. Like I believe it was in Abbotsford last fall. Yeah. And then so Salmon Arm, so I think they announce at the next games, they'll announce where the next one is. Is that what you're asking, sorry?
Yeah, it is. I wanted to know if they picked a definite location or it was just at different communities every year.
Yeah.
So, which is fine, but I think it's a really great opportunity for us to showcase what we have here and what they're looking for. So, hopefully, you know, some of those folks will come back, but hopefully Salmon Arm Sycamore's name will come up sooner than other, not that I want other communities to fail, but I want stuff in our community. I want it in our community.
Yeah. It isn't in as a marketing initiative, but Sycamoose was selected for 3 sports to be hosted in Sycamoose of the total. I want to say there's 16 or 20 sports. I can't remember. So there will be a dragon boat races at taking place over at Sycamoose Houseboats, a triathlon taking place at Old Town Bay Marina, and then hockey. That will be one of 4 venues. So what that means is there's, you know, an influx of 300 to 500 participants in town from September 10th to the 14th. So that means our accommodators, our restaurants, our retail shops. It'll be a great opportunity. Once they actually do the full, this was not the official announcement, but once they do the official calendar announcement, then we'll head out to market and leverage a lot of the marketing assets that 55 Plus Games will send us to ensure that the town is ready to host that many people for that short amount of time. So it's gonna be a busy September.
It's gonna be a business.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Ian, you had some?
Yeah, so just a question, you have the signature events.
Yes.
But I was like drilling down a little bit. And I see the majority of it is for about 45,000 of it is for the UCI World Champions, the pump track. So maybe you can explain a little bit of your thinking on that,
Well, we.
just in terms of what you.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we haven't been officially awarded it. They're still going through some calendar. The number that I came up with was based on other communities' events that they've done. This is not including sponsorship opportunities. I always like to plan without in case, you know, we don't get any sponsorship, which I don't see that being a challenge. What this covers is event coordinator help, volunteer, although we call them volunteers, there is compensation from, you know, through various means. So timing, photography, hosting, race coordinators coming in. I have a list that I've created and I can share the full budget, but that's a rough estimate of what it'll cost with the blessing of the DOS to utilize their facility and their staff as an in-kind donation to the event.
So it's quite a substantial event is what,
Yeah. So yeah, the goal is to attract anywhere from 100 to 150 participants over a 2-day event. That's incorporating an amateur event, which will bring families in. I'm sure some of you probably see on the news that Kamloops is breaking ground this fall on their own pump track. Whether they have applied well to host a qualifier in 2024 won't make a difference. It's 11 points, so you get participants that maybe don't place at other races that'll go to, you know, a variety of events. The way I look at that is a huge bonus for us because that is a training facility for the event that we are hoping to host. So now we have an active community that'll be looking in the northern part of the province that we can draw down for the actual event. So in my opinion, the more pump tracks, the more I call them training facilities to, you know, ultimately, I'm hoping will be an anchor event to Sycamoose for the world championship competition every year.
Yeah, is that on the shoulder season?
September, it'll be September this
Great.
year. And the reason that I put the date request in would be, the anchor will be for June. Moving
Right,
forward, because
okay.
the World Championship Finals typically always ends in Europe. And that fluctuates, so in 2025, their World Finals is actually in August, and I did not wanna fight with any summer months, so I tried to keep it. We've got the third weekend in June, so it's a kickoff to summer.
Yep.
So wrapping up that week before, so yeah, the goal is trying to really take those quick wins, June and September, and then, you know, secondary is May and October, to really bolster those to start creating the 4-season adventure location that we're hoping.
Great, excited.
Great. Thank you, Carly. Colleen?
Yeah, that's super excited. I'm happy about the pump track and Daryl, thanks for getting on that and getting all those trees cleared in a day, so no one even noticed. I mean, what a great space for a pump track. Seriously, it's beautiful. It's a great choice. And thanks for, you know what, already starting to promote it and move forward with it. Ingrid Jarrett is president of BC Hotel Associates. Have you been doing some work with them and sharing some data back and forth?
Yeah, so Emile is one of her staff members. That's who I work with on the STR, and they've generously given me data that I need, but because of the confidentiality aspect around it, even when we invest in it for hotel data on behalf of the hotels, I will have to pay for my own reports. I don't actually get to see what the individual hotels will receive. So it's kind of a two-part program where the hotels get their own specific data, but then they'll get sort of that sampling of what the entire community has without any numbers or names tied to the specific numbers. And then I can request a report finally to get our true visitor data, because right now that's the only program short of going to each individual hotel. And some of our accommodators have been very open with sharing their data with me and others not so much, which is totally fair. The STR will solve that problem if I can get 4 of our hotels. We already have 2 that are participating in STR. So if we get 2 more, then we can have some hard numbers on what's actually happening with our visitation trends.
Thank you. And we'll still continue to chase another hotelier for Sycamores.
That's great. Thank you, Carly. Anybody else have anything? No, that's great. Well, thank you very much, Carly. Really appreciate it. Sorry?
I said now I'm economic development. I'm not done yet.
Oh, actually,
No, go ahead.
great. Just one question, just about the MRTT revenue. Did we have that in here?
It's
It's on the next piece?
it is there, yeah, on the, yeah, right at the.
Yeah, well, I wonder if you can just touch, so are we? Where are we in comparison to last year?
So we only have up until.
We're still waiting on 3 months.
Yeah, always behind 3 months. So September, we took a almost 50% decline. I projected October, November, December to be the same, especially now with no snow. I'm thinking that we're probably gonna be a little bit more in some aspects, like with the new bylaws for short term, we're seeing that bump up. So it's such an unknown on where we're going, but yeah, it's
Yeah,
We were a little aggressive last year.
right.
a lot aggressive.
We were aggressive last year. Optimistic, that one.
Optimistic.
But with the fires, we definitely did see that big decrease, 130, looking at the numbers. I mean, we're almost there for this year. I think we're gonna hit 130. So.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I would certainly say the fall, very, very weak fall. We've seen it in our businesses. I think everybody I've talked to say that the fall's exceptionally slow. Like even with the August, when the government said leave, people actually did listen and they left. And then I don't think they ever came back. So I'm not shocked at all about the September numbers. We're seeing that all like it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I think when we get the snow, does those numbers really kick up? I mean, they'll kick up a little bit, but will they be in comparison to other years? I mean, it's going to be, I think, an interesting year for these numbers because, are we trending higher? Are we down or what's happening? But certainly the first 3 months, I agree. I don't expect much from September, October, November. Based just on what I've seen in my business, and which is usually a pretty good barometer for how many people are kicking around town. Yeah.
Thanks, Ian. Colleen?
I don't know if there's an opportunity there, when the government said leave. We were on the cusp, but like we weren't part of, everybody just assumed that we need to clear out of Sycamores too. And you shouldn't be going houseboating and you shouldn't, I don't know if there's a way that we can push back on that a little bit when it's all over there. We don't want to shut down Sycamores, right? So I don't know if there's any way we can look at doing a bump up in our advertising or.
Yeah, so through the chair, the minute that travel order came down, BCHA, the Kaya BC, Destination BC, TOTA, they all got all the tourism associations and DMOs onto a call and immediately went to bat because it was felt right across and they said it was catastrophic and it was a very shame on whoever did not consult and put that blanket order because there was no opportunity. It does go right down to something where through 2 conferences or courses, I should say, that I took through Destination BC on emergency crisis management and media mitigation, that will be applying to all of our planning in the next year. But a big part of it that we need to have a larger conversation about is how our government entities, so the ESS, the DOS, the CSRD, promoting those tragic photos that we see, that's what the media grabs onto, and that's what they ended up sharing. So when you open up the BC Wildfire app, all you see is the entire province of BC looks like it's on fire. And that's not, so that's something that European travelers are looking at. So they're going into what the easiest source of finding that information is, and it's through media, and it's through ready source available information on our government app. So there's a lot of work behind the scenes to figure out how we do and prevent what happened last year in the shoe shop, because it's inevitable that it could happen anywhere. And if we don't figure out how to create better relationships with our media, and that's another task that they've asked everyone to do, is create media lists and start having regular conversations and updates with all of our local media so that they feel comfortable coming to the tourism side as well, versus just going to, opening and being like, I need to write a story on how the entire shoe shop is on fire. Because it's an unfair assessment, and it really, well, like Ian said, it impacts every business in town, and it shouldn't have. So again, the BC Hotel Association is hitting back very hard on the government's requests, I guess they were, for hoteliers to empty out. Again, that's an unfair ask, because there were a lot of communities where they were asked to empty out, and people are, we're self-sufficient with their own trailers, with other things. And so now you've kicked out all of your summer business. And like Ian said, they didn't come back. Destination BC received a $1 million marketing grant that they were going to pump right back in. And we all asked and said, we don't think that you're going to bring people back. Let's save that money. So they're going to reinvest it into, amplifying those programs of the Shoe Shops Open, BC's open programs, when we get into, winter tourism, spring tourism, where it makes sense in different locations around the province. And they are looking at other funding opportunities for businesses that have been hardest impacted by, having to let staff go, et cetera. So they're looking to provide models for when emergency situations do arise.
Oh, thank you.
Great, thank you, Carly. I'm glad you guys were on it. One more, Ian?
Yeah, well, I just maybe make one, since we're on this topic, I think it's a very important topic, because I mean, it really affected the entire town. I don't think there was a business that wasn't affected by it. And I wonder if there's some conversations, or if there should be a conversation. I think maybe at some point we should talk about it as a council, how forest fires are actually being fought in the province as well. Back in the day, it was always, if it was out in the bush, let it burn. Let's not put it out too quickly because it's just forestry land. I think all of that is changing now very dramatically, that they start off small, then they turn into massive monsters. That also has the smoke impact. We shouldn't just, say the problem is just it's not just the province telling people to leave. It's also the choking smoke that is forcing people to leave. Like we had that now a couple of summers. And I somehow, and I don't quite know how to do it, but there has to be a message back to the province that we can't have every summer full of choking smoke and still expect to thrive as a community or as a tourism destination. People just won't put up with it. And that goes back to how we fight fires and what resources we have to fight fires. And, I understand that's a bigger conversation, but I wonder if some of the tourism sector is trying to get their head wrapped around that, because I often hear from people who drop into town, beautiful place, but I can't stand the smoke, and I'm with my kids, and guess what? I'm leaving because I don't want my kids to be, inhaling this air that's worse than Beijing, right? Or it's the world's worst air. So I don't know, has there been any conversations around that, or rumblings, or some thought?
That's, no, we actually haven't addressed the smoke side of things. So that's a great point to bring up at our next meeting.
Thanks.
And sorry, can I just
Go ahead, Colleen.
Sorry, and maybe that's something the chamber could jump on as well with us, is advocating to the province for those sort of things like that. We can all work together at making sure that that message is shared, and we're all on the same page and all feeling the same way. Because you're absolutely right. That stuff, you can't just leave it burn anymore. It's gonna be managed a bit because it's a health issue.
Oh, huge.
So, okay, thank you.
Great, good. We're done with tourism. Everybody's good. Okay, Carly, we'll move on to ECTA.
Okay, so economic development, the total budget for 2024 projects is 159,800. This includes our carryovers you'll be able to see on the next page. So what we're investing in next year, as I mentioned earlier, the training sessions are listed here below, but that's part of the industry development training. Our business walks were really successful. And we will be putting out an invite to mayor and council. A lot of the feedback that we received, Siobhan and Malcolm joined it, but there was a lot of statements of, it's really great to see people coming out. I've been open for X amount of years and I've never seen anyone in my business. So we would love to invite mayor and council on our business walks in May of 2024 to join our development corporation board members on Kit in the Community. We did 21 businesses last May. We'll, target that plus or minus 10 businesses now that we'll have extra feet on the ground, but look out for that invite. It's just a morning breakfast briefing and then a day of just going out and connecting with our business community, finding out how they're doing. So through those business walks, we have, like I said, it drove a lot of the planning for the development corporation next year. So we're gonna start doing coffee with the board. So we're gonna do 3 in the mornings and then 3 after works. Ones where it's open to any businesses to come in, sit down, discuss things. We did a lot of one-on-ones where we invited businesses in to chat with board members based on, expansion, staffing challenges, immigration, all of those kinds of topics. And now the board wants to get more active in being an open, or providing an open opportunity for people to come and collect as a group anyways. The business supports, the only differences are emergency preparedness and grant writing. We're going to bring those back again. They were probably our most popular ones. And then working with BC Shop Local and the Chamber to look at amplifying the BC Shop Local Week in November. Travels and conferences. So again, 2 annual conferences, the BC Economic Development Association, Economic Summit in Penticton, and then Director Alan Wagler and I went to the Salmon Arm Economic Development Business Forum in Salmon Arm this year. It was awesome. It was a solid day of really impactful speakers. Salmon Arm Economic Development Society did a great job. So we're going to budget in for more of our directors, but also local businesses that want to attend will buy the ticket and they can attend with us because it was very valuable information from a business standpoint. Website, very self-explanatory, keep growing our assets there. And then other projects, again, our carryover is going to be applied here through other projects. So we're looking at understanding with property acquisition, some plans for developers and how we can make the transition to a partnership with property through a small investment in getting some plans developed. Our big spend is going to be the tourism impact study. So this came from a request, as many of you have probably read, Sycamoose did a sledding impact study back in July of 2021. We feel that a tool such as a full, complete tourism look and an impact study on Sycamoose, addressing things like the channel, zebra quagga mussels, snowpack boating, all of those industries need to all be encompassed in one, especially as we're developing other assets, looking at different trends. It's a pretty significant project. I've chatted with a couple communities that got them done. So we're targeting about 45,000 if we don't find any funding, which at CBC will probably be who I go to look for some funding on this, but this will be our big project for next year. And what this will do is this also provides a tool for our 2025 MRDT plan renewal. A lot of our local businesses can leverage the type of information that we're hoping to gain out of this for their funding applications. So it's a very robust plan that we want to get developed. The Youth Entrepreneur Programming is a partnership program through SEDS, Community Futures Okanagan College and SD83 and incorporated in the Chamber. It's something we just talked about yesterday that we want to really look at this. Like Sheila had mentioned, how do we keep our youth engaged and in our communities moving forward? And then additional partnership programs, the Shoe Shop Workforce Hub. So we're going to go back to the drawing board from the marketing side and ensure that our businesses understand how to load their jobs If you have not visited the Workforce Hub, I do encourage, it is a partnership between, I keep referencing the same partnerships, but Work BC, Community Futures, Saminar MacDev, Shuswap AgDev, and us in terms of providing our own version of Indeed. So again, with the volume of owner operator businesses that don't have their own human resources to wade through, 74 resumes from, India or China or wherever, that they're getting these random automated resumes. Work BC actually goes through and filters those and helps to push jobs to the Workforce Hub. So it is literally connecting Shuswap employers with Shuswap employees. So if you haven't, as business owners, please do log on, and again, we'll be looking at the hiring trends in the region and going out and owning a couple of marketing campaigns per organization to ensure that our businesses are aware of this, as well as our local job seekers. BC Business Count is a program that we are going to partner with SAVES to invest in. And so this will help with our business walk stats. Instead of keeping everything on like a Google Drive, it's a BC Economic Development Association platform that will allow us to track all of our business conversations, growth, retention, et cetera, in one spot. So it's easy for someone to access that's within the organization, so that we can see and enter business conversations. So now the board is no longer need to download everything to me. They can actually go into this program and say, hey, I randomly had coffee with X business and here are the challenges. So then everybody from the board is aware of where we're at with conversations with our businesses. And then the Shuswap Economic Recovery Task Force. This came from everything that happened this year. It's there's area directors on it. There's local businesses, there's industry. It's a big group of people that have created subcommittees. So I'm on the tourism and the business retention and supply chain subcommittees. And we're looking at local ways to help when these types of crises hit. So taking everything that we've learned, it's more of an advocacy group looking at ways that we can leverage our municipal governments, our area, our regional directors, et cetera. So it's very new. I think we've had 2 or 3 meetings just to set terms of references. I can share more of it as these groups go on, but it is it's a very important group for our area, and then our membership fees.
Great. Any more? That's great, Carly. Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
I have a comment and suggestion first of all, I love the direction of the ECDEV board right now, and they're so engaged in so many different things, which is awesome because we've struggled to get that going. And is there any way that when you've got someone that's coming into town and this could, be a chamber issue as well? Like Kelly, we have commercial space, well, we don't, but the Dairy Queen on the highway is going to have 2 commercial spaces. Is that common knowledge that we will, because we don't have a lot of commercial space here in Sycamore, so is that common knowledge that if someone is looking or contacting you and going, hey, is there any commercial space? You go, yes, you know what, there's 2 pieces on Highway 1, or
Yeah,
is that shareable? Like, I guess that's.
I have to talk with Amar. So when Amar first, before they broke ground, he did say, this is going to be available. This is what's going on here. So if you hear of anybody, this is the rough.
Okay.
Yeah. It should, I guess it would be public knowledge now because everything's on the go, but we definitely could do a better job at making sure that that's, that's something that's around. We did look at a software program for the website. It's quite an expensive commitment, but it could be very valuable, something to look where we shift some money into, where you could actually have a map of Sycamore and have all of your planned projects and what's available. So it would be as simple, you go to a map and you click on a project and it has all of the details. It is like I said, it's a significant investment, but it is pretty cool. So that would solve a lot of the problems with people coming into town and be sort of a one-stop shop, because it would be colored by zoning and then what actually is in it. So yeah, could be a way to do it.
Yeah, just as long as, it's on our screen, because I know that part of the reason that we're not getting some newer business, there's no space, right? Mm-hmm. To lease or rent. And the other thing is, can we, the apprenticeship programs, like I know we have some at the school and I think at the plant. Is that something we can also encourage is apprenticeship? as far as through, some of those resources that you have.
Yeah, through the chair, I think that that's one of the things I will mention at our next youth entrepreneur programming meeting. I did actually have a conversation with Todd about, was as we were starting to develop this and talk about what this could potentially look like from trades. I did talk to Todd and he had outlined a couple of the programs that they do there in terms of encouraging kids to go into that particular trade field. So we're gonna have a bigger conversation about how how that program actually works and who funds it and try and see if there's more opportunities in town for. Sound Arm does a great job. They have a much larger manufacturing and tech sector where students have a lot more positions readily available for them to go into, but then we could potentially look at including our, Sycamoose, it's such a short drive and we share so many resources that, to open that up to our student population as well.
And I think the school does apprenticeship programs too, do they not? No, not anymore? Okay,
Yeah,
Chat about it.
Okay.
yeah,
okay,
Those is taken back into it, but not at this time.
right, that's a good call. Colleen, you did?
I'm good. Thank you very much. Thank you. Great presentation and I love the great presentation. I love that we're all working together. And I think we're doing a really good job, or you guys are doing a really good job, and I thank you. Go ahead, Sheila. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Public Works was one of the employers that was here, as was TA, and we were speaking about, they actually were gonna take.
Excuse me, Sheila, can you do the microphone? Because
I'll start all over again. So yeah,
What you say,
people online can't hear you.
taking students to those sites, because a lot of kids, like I said, do not know the jobs. So Public Works was one that actually offered so that they can have tours and actually see the applications.
good idea.
That would be a great opportunity for kids. That was discussed here, so. it's fine.
Okay, great, thanks, Sheila.
Sorry, and just,
Right, Colleen?
sorry, just to clarify, I just threw TA out there. I'm not advocating, I'm even, a chef or a sous chef in restaurants or something.
Sure.
I mean, there's opportunity here for our youth to learn if they choose. Okay,
Really good. Yeah, Daryl's recruiting. He's looking for recruits.
Yeah, and that applies to social services as well. We're taking a practicum, human services workers, so
Okay,
starting in January.
great. Well, thank you very much, Carly, for your presentation, and Sheila as well. You guys work close together, and it's all about bringing more business and tourism to town. And so we really look forward to seeing your plans, and we'll take both of them in consideration when we're going through the budget process here. Thank you very much. Okay.
Wait, may I say one thing? Sheila
got you, can I?
in case everybody knows that Work BC in Sycamoose is now fully staffed with 2 full-time people. So they were short-staffed and running on hours. Thank you for reminding me, because I just spoke to them last night. And they will be moving locations. So they're going to be setting up.
In town?
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you very much. Bianca, you're good? Everything's good? All right. Well, moving right along, I guess we'll move on to our item C, fees and charges bylaw review. Bianca, that's yours too.
So included in the agenda, 2 points of presentation, which I'll go through. A copy of our current fees and charges bylaw included, and also correspondence from Ralph Watterson. He was in one of our previous council meetings to discuss utility fees.
Oh, right.
So that has been included in there as well. I'll start with presentation. As I go through this, we'll be pausing throughout to discuss. I'm not going to do the full presentation and then have discussion at the end. Every slide, feel free to get in there. So,
Okay.
so our fees and charges bylaw number 740 from 2009, it was first introduced. So background, so adopted January 14th, 2009. It's been amended 38 times. It is time to repeal and replace it. So talking to other staff members, the managers and stuff, our goals for this new bylaw creating a bylaw that is simple for the user to understand, both internally and externally. Even some of us internally have gone back and forth having arguments on, is that how you read it? So we want to get as much clarity as possible. How we're going to do this, we're going to improve the formatting, rework the order of the bylaw, provide a table of contents, and provide simple language and easy clarifying statements. We're going to be updating all rates to better align with current costs. So by increasing fees in this bylaw, we're actually able to decrease general taxation in places. Because the whole idea of fees for service is you pay it when you need it. So by increasing these fees, we can hopefully increase some of that revenue, which will decrease general taxation. And then incorporate any new fees or charges applicable or any changes currently missing. So the first big one, water and sewer rates. So the last rate review was done in 2019. It was a very extensive rate review, which was introduced with new rates. Since then, so water revenue has been consistently increasing, and that was intentional when that review was done. However, sewer, see it better anyways. Sewer, on the other hand, we decreased the overall revenue back in 2019, which, as we've talked about, our operational changes, those operating costs are going up, and show that on the next few slides on where that needs to be at. So for water rates, so this is our revenue requirement. So our current policy is that we put between 20 to 30% into reserves every year. That's just our internal policy. Doesn't mean we have to meet that policy, but it's just a very good amount to try to hit. So right now, I've broken it down with what our current rates are, how many users we have. So if we kept the rates the same for 2024 and did not do an increase, we'd be just below that 25%, projecting for just below that 25% of reserves. So we'd be within our policy. If we want to bump it a little bit, we'll be sitting between that 25%, 30% to reserves. 1% bump in all rates would have about a $5 effect on users. A few things about these rates to note. Right now, I do need to change some language in here and have some discussions with a few strata properties. So we've had in our bylaw wording on for strata properties where our zoning restricted how much they could be open during the year. We gave it so you have your stratified property per unit charge. There was a reduced rate for those that were restricted on how long they could be open. With our new zoning bylaw, they're no longer restricted by that zoning. So we need to have those discussions with the stratas and figure out what that wording needs to be. And if some of them might be bumped up to the full unit charge because of it. So that one's to be continued, but just to bring it to council's attention, there will be some changes there. Overall, I think we're in a good place with water. Just looking at how much we're putting to reserves, we could do a 1% bump up if we felt like it, but I would say right now, I would slow down on water because sewer is next. If that's okay with you guys, I'll go to sewer. Yeah, Gord.
Yeah, Bianca, can I just ask residential, there's 71 residentials that aren't hooked up or aren't on a meter, is that?
Yes. Yeah.
Is there a reason why that's so high? Like, I mean.
It's been going down every year.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been going down every year.
All right.
So I've actually estimated that'll go down a little bit more. Yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, so if water is going really, really well, we can transfer. I mean, I remember Kelly talking about this the other day. We can do a transfer from the water reserve over to sewage reserves as well, correct?
Yeah, our reserves in water, I would say, while they're good, I mean, looking at our 5-year plan, things change. I don't know if it'd be the best thing to do because you just depleted a little bit more. Like we'd have to look at it.
Yeah,
From the capital perspective, yes. From the operating perspective,
yeah, I was just trying to look at kind of what our capital requirements on water would be in the next 5 years. I know we have expansion capabilities over in the plant and things, but you know, correct me if I'm wrong, Daryl, there's still quite a bit of slack that we have with our current setup.
Kind of a loaded question.
Yeah.
Right, because we've,
Well, if it's not right, just say I'm not right.
no,
It's fine.
you're talking about extra capacity at this
Yeah.
point. Yeah, we're doing okay for water production.
Yes,
We've got a lot of old lines, we've got a lot of
Right.
things, we've got membranes that'll have to be repaired fairly quickly.
okay,
Not repaired, so replaced.
Yeah.
Within the next number of years, so all that stuff is kind of accounted for in the 5-year plan and going forward to a 10-year plan, so.
Thanks, Daryl.
Yeah, it could be used.
Okay, Ian?
so there's a little slack, not a lot.
For capacity, we've got some.
Okay,
and I wouldn't want to make a big change, like a catastrophic change in sewer this year. Because we are doing those assessments and everything with the sewage treatment plant. I'm proposing just setting 2024 rates, so we can see what, you know, how all these assessments go, where we need to be at, look at that long range capital plan, and then hoping to set like 2024, 2025, 2026 all at once.
Okay,
If that makes sense. And just looking at these rates, like we have, because there's two parts to it, right? We have our fixed charge. This rate actually hasn't changed over the last few years. So we can keep that, like, we want to do no increase in water. That rate just, the flat fixed have not changed. It's just been in consumption. When it comes to rate increases and everything. Just, yeah, because when you look at it, this part is what we can always rely on, the fixed, right?
Yeah.
The consumption is based on usage, which, I mean, 2021, it was a lot higher. So, just some thoughts there too.
okay, thanks, Bianca. Ian, go ahead.
so I'm just looking at this. This is interesting. So
Yeah.
the stratified properties, some of those square footages can be the size of a small house. So there, the fixed charge is at 130. But am I correct that a fixed charge for a home, would that be the $260 one, the 3/4 inch?
This is your usual home. These
Okay.
guys also get a fixed charge for their whole strata.
Oh,
So
no.
they're the ones that are paying usually these 3-inch, 4-inch, 2-inch, like they're these ones as well.
Okay,
You can't really look at them.
Okay. that was my question.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect, thank you.
Fine, go ahead.
Through the chair. And I think when we look at this, we also have to be really cognizant of, there was a town in, up by Kelowna that just had a 27% tax increase because they didn't put money into reserves and their systems are old and are breaking down. So I absolutely want to keep everybody's taxes low, and I know the economy is really, really hard right now. But I think we do have to be cognizant of our reserves so that when things do break, because they do, and they do need to be replaced, that we do have some money there, and then we're not, you know, getting a 27% tax increase in a year. So just putting that out there.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much. Okay, everybody good with water? All right. Bianca, you can move on. You want to move on to sewer rates?
So sewer rates right now, without doing, so with doing gotta move Malcolm's head.
Oops, sorry.
So right now, without an increase, we are sitting below putting 10% away to reserves. Looking at our 5-year capital plan that for doing Boutwell and lift station upgrades and stuff like that, that long-term isn't gonna be enough. We wanna edge closer to our policy, which is closer in line with our current capital plan to keep us afloat there. So doing a 5% increase. would result in $17.60 for the average user. That would be a flat increase across the board on all rates. The fixed rates, strata rates, consumption rates. And that would bring us in line with more around the 15% to reserves mark, which I think is a good start to get us closer. If we wanted to get a little more aggressive with it, a 10% would bring us to the 20% and would result in about a $35 increase a year.
Okay,
Have a conversation on that.
everybody good with that?
Well,
What are we good?
Are you good with the 5%? Are you,
Yeah, I mean, we have to. See, it's kind of hard to make that comment right now because I just don't know where we are overall, right? Like and so. Yeah, it kind of depends on these other pieces where I'm good at. I've heard a lot of comments, a lot of feedback about how people are really tapped. I see it. I see it even in the business community. We just got kind of done talking about, summer wasn't great. Fall was really terrible. I mean, numbers, I think, for everybody are way, way down. We're getting a little bit into summer, December now. Hopefully the snow kicks up. But if the snow doesn't kick up, we're gonna have a lot of struggles from a lot of different businesses. So it's kind of hard for me to say, but
you can just be sure we're not voting on this
no.
presentation.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I would tend to go towards the 5%.
Yeah.
Than I would anything more aggressive.
Okay, everybody's good?
And our thoughts too, as staff, was 5% sewer, leave water for this year, do the full review this summer and go from there.
Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
Okay,
Next piece, water and sewer rates is our connection charges. So water connection charges haven't been increased since 2006. So it's been a while. Of course, our costs have gone up. Yep.
Right?
go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, there are some heavy users we already know of, and Daryl, Bianca, anybody who wants to comment, that are using a lot of sewer capacity. Are we measuring it? Like, I'm thinking dump stations around town, things like that, how are we charging them? I guess really what I'll ask.
So we've identified that, like houseboat companies and stuff like that, that puts a lot of extra strain on our system just because of the type of sewage it is. So they have sewer meters in them.
No, I'm not talking so much about them, but I'm talking.
Anyone like regular?
Well, there's a dump, I mean, I don't wanna single anybody out, but there are sanding stations for RVs in town that do they have a sewage meter on them? There's a lot of sewage going into some of those,
Good point.
Yeah,
a lot.
Yeah.
So I guess my point here is maybe when we are looking at this, we're looking at some of those obvious areas where we know there's a lot of sewage capacity and highly concentrated sewage that it's going into our system that we probably aren't getting paid for. And it looks like the days of that should be over, just based on what we're gonna need to do for our upgrades.
Yeah, and Ian, I can add to that. It could be just something implemented in the bylaw that if you have a dump, a dump station, some additional fee and I'm not sure what that fee is, but we could do some homework on it. But, I've always been a proponent of actually having the municipality have its own dump site, to encourage RVs to come to town and stuff like that. And I know lots of towns all have municipal dump sites, but to have a commercial business that has a dump site. And I'm not sure, I know they charge for people that don't fill up, they charge a dump fee. So they're making some money on the dump fee and the district of Sycamore is not. So it's just something to think about. Go ahead, Bianca.
I just make a comment on that, because we're at the junction of 97A and Highway 1. It isn't necessarily just it isn't just used by people who come here, right? It's kind of on the way to a lot of things too. And when we're talking about using our infrastructure, I just want to make sure that's being captured because, look, I think we've seen it all in the summer, how much product is getting, put into our system. That if we're going forward with rate increases on sewer, I just think general sense, we have a duty to make sure we're capturing all of it and charging appropriately, and that's it. That's kind of the point there. And there's a couple of areas that we already know, we already identified in other conversations where that's not happening. So I just want to make that point.
Earl, is there a meter over there yet or no?
We're talking about the gas station?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not aware of a meter over there, no.
okay, so we'll look into that and look at cost for setting up a meter and all of that there. Because when we put in the meters originally to the houseboats, the district paid for those meters to all get put in, and then they're now the ownership of the houseboat company, and it's up to them to replace them when that time comes. So we'd probably have to do a similar setup there.
Thanks, Mayor. Kelly?
Pay for itself.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And just to reflect, when we reviewed the rates back in 2019, we did talk about the Sandy dump thing, and then we kind of looked around at what other municipalities were doing 5 years ago. And I know, so the one in Salmon Arm at Piccadilly Mall, that one there's no charge for, and the municipality just covers it. And I think we looked at a few other ones at the time, but this one's a little different. It's at a commercial business, and if they're charging for it, so it's definitely worth looking. As well as I think looking at the rate that we charge for the houseboat waste as well. That rate hasn't increased at all since 2019. And I know we initially set the rate at a very reasonable rate. So I think when we're looking at it together, we can kind of take a look at all the users and make sure it's distributed and we're capturing what we should be capturing on that. But we did look at that back in the day, but it's definitely worth a revisit.
Okay.
Because we don't have a municipal one.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah. I know we don't. Yeah, it's just something that I was told by somebody that has an RV. And I wasn't aware that they were, if you fill up, you don't have to pay, but if you don't fill up, it's $5. It's not a lot, but it's just something to be aware of, that's for sure. But and we should maybe confirm that as well. I don't know, that's what I've heard, because I don't have an RV. Okay, can I just ask Bianca on the connection charges?
Yeah.
Do we have any comparisons? Like I know like you did with the cemetery down below, you kind of had Salmon Arm connection charges. Do we have any comparisons on connection charges?
Yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag, all around. A lot of them do it based on a lot of cost. A lot of the time, so tracking the cost for every connection and then charging it out, taking a deposit and then doing an estimate and then giving back whatever's remaining. That is an option. It's a lot more administrative work and also does not allow the person connecting to know what their cost is going to be because it could fluctuate.
Yeah.
But I can get some more and talk to some more people if you'd like.
Yeah, I just, a lot of, if I do have any complaints about connection charges, it's about, the sewer and the water connection charges. And I can't really compare because I haven't done my homework myself on Enderby or Salmon Arm or Revelstoke. Just a few local close by places. We could have some samples of what their current rate is.
Yeah, and these are just Daryl and I discussing are really to cover our costs, what we've seen. Sewer, currently we just have one sewer rate, like 4,500.
Yep.
But sewer can really fluctuate in complexity, I would say. So that one too, I can get comparisons for both. And what they do for commercial, non-commercial and stuff like that.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you. Go ahead, Darien.
So I think you touched on it, but these proposed increases align with what is generally our cost to actually do it. Okay, yeah, because that's an important point. So right now we would be kind of almost subsidizing it into it, yeah, okay.
We have it.
Yeah, I have been, okay. And then with the sewer. Is there any breakdown? You just mentioned is, obviously a commercial sewage connection is gonna be different. Or is this just kind of a flat fee that you charge everybody?
Right now, our current bylaw is a flat fee, so right now we're just proposing to keep the way we're doing it the same. This will be a part of our full review with the other charges this summer. To get a little more detailed in there. I mean, we had 3 sewer connections a few months ago. And I think the total bill, because we needed contractors in order to do
Right.
it, was like over 23,000 or something like that for 3 connections. So we're looking at, what, because it really depends, And then on top of this too, it also depends, if there's asphalt that needs to get cut or not, because that'll be an additional charge. Because we have to fill, like if it's on, you're on the far side of the road, that's a full cut. So those will also be getting incorporated.
Okay. Great, thank you.
So more to come on this one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like there needs to be.
Thanks, Bianca.
Okay, and then our water meters. So we charge, our charge out for when people put in new water meters. So these rates were last updated again in 2006. They're currently in our water regulations bylaw. So we're proposing just to move them over to fees and charges to have it all in one place. When you want to connect, what all does it involve? Your water meter is one of those things. So looking at the current rates that we're getting charged for those water meters, the prices have gone up with materials. Not significantly, because this hasn't been updated since 2006. So we're looking at about 15% increase in meters charges.
Okay,
And so another thing, just looking at verbiage in our fees and service charges. Currently we have people with secondary dwellings, which I know we're promoting long-term rentals and all that. And with that, right now the wording in our bylaw is that if you have a second meter, you get charged a second fixed charge, the full fixed charge. And I've talked to had a few discussions with different owners that have said, well, getting that full fixed charge is a lot when it's just for my little, my little carriage home or whichever. So just looking at if council would like to add in some verbiage or give some flexibility there for rates. So right now, so an option would be, and this is one thing I've looked at quite a few other communities, and what they usually do for suites or carriage homes is if you have a second service that's providing a place for someone to stay, it's half of the regular. So you do a residential, so if someone had a basement suite, you'd pay a half charge. So in this case, adding some verbiage that it could be 50% for the second meter, and this is where we can play around with the verbiage. So I just put this in there as a draft. So this discount is to support additional housing within the district. The property owner must make a declaration that the additional meter is for a long-term living arrangement and not for short-term rental purposes. So just so it can kind of align with our strategic priority of housing. Yeah, so if we put in a 50% discount, that saves someone with a 3/4 inch meter for their carriage home about $230. There's an option that we waive it for that second home. It still puts extra strain on our system. Usually they're smaller than the principal residence, so not quite as much. That's why I'm proposing the half. And then there's also the option of no change. So just to open that up to council for discussion. And another thing to note here, right now I'm finding this issue because people are phoning saying, I have a second meter, why am I getting this second fixed charge? Another side of it is we have people with secondary suites that don't have a second meter, so they're not paying a fixed charge right now. So one thing that a lot of other municipalities do is they ask you to declare if you have a secondary suite set up in your home, because that's usually, you know, it's an extra dishwasher, it's an extra washing machine, it's all those extra things of an extra residence. It's a bit of staff time work to get to go out and educate the community, but if we wanted to set up a half fixed charge for anyone with a suite, that is also an option. It probably won't happen this year, but I just want to understand council's flavor on carriage homes, suites, and what we want to do for fixed charges. They're always gonna get consumption, but they need to be metered. But I just wanted to open it up with council.
And can you discuss like what would your thoughts be on the number of secondary suites that actually have a meter versus not?
Very few.
Right, most secondary suites don't have a separate water meter, it's just part of the rent. Yeah, still can be a legal suite, but it doesn't have a separate water meter.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, discussion. Anybody have any comments or questions? Go ahead, Colleen.
I have just clarification, with their housing strategy. So there will be long-term folks in some way eventually, if people have a big piece of property, choose to put a townhome or some sort of home in their backyard. So that will be a separate meter and separate charge altogether. Like that's just like a second, that's. So if I have a house and I put a house in my backyard and Bill and I are just two and the house that we're long-term renting in the backyard is 4.
That's usually a separate,
It will be a separate.
like, yeah, this situation is usually if it's like a smaller, you know, carriage home, a basement suite, those sorts of situations.
Sure.
Not like there's 2 full houses on a piece of property.
Through the chair, but maybe Daryl can address this. At this time, you don't need, I'm pretty sure that you don't have to have a second hookup. So if you have a carriage house, you don't have to. You can run it all through yours. You can put a little, if it's a T-bar or whatever that runs up to the little house and off it goes. So at
But you
this
could
time.
be on a fixed charge.
Right now, that branch off with, it depends where it hits the meter. So right now I have one that the service comes in, they had a bunch of pavement and stuff in there. So they branched off before the meter, went to put in a second meter, now they're paying 2 charges.
Okay. Okay.
So trying to get some consistency there. If there's a carriage house, do we want to do a half fixed charge for it, regardless of where the meter is?
Or if they have a meter.
Or if they have a meter. If they have a basement suite, do you want to do a second fixed charge knowing that it's 2 residences?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
I can say Salmon Arm Tree, you get half of, regardless of your secondary meter, for a suite, you get half of a charge for water and half of a charge for sewer. So if my water's 400,
Yeah.
my house, I pay 200 for the suite. And if it's 400 for sewer, I pay 200 for the suite. So I get paid for my house and my suite.
Yeah.
Half.
Yeah.
Not mine, but
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I do like the idea about half chart, 50%. Ian?
Yeah, I mean, I think 50% on the second meter sounds fair. I don't know if I'd be going back and saying, hey, you've had this suite for 20 years in your house and now you gotta start paying 50%. That will be very, I think that's gonna be a lot of work for you guys to go and identify that. And then it could be potentially a lot more hassle than what it's worth. It'll certainly cause a stir because there's gonna be some people with basement suites that have been there for 20 years. And then all of a sudden we're going and we say, hey, you gotta pay 50%. And then I would see the other potential problem there. I really don't have any appetite in trying to tell them, you gotta shut down your suite if you don't pay this, right? So I think that's probably a road that we probably shouldn't go down. I think we can encourage people when we go through planning as we go forward to have that secondary suite, the new ones, on a separate meter, and here's the incentive to do it, it's 50% off. that's just kind of where my head is going.
But I'll just add this 1 second, Pam, that we also have 76 units that are on flat rate. Is that right? You know, so they could be out servicing two families. So that's something to look at. Go ahead, Pam.
Well, I was just, we don't currently register secondary suites, right? In houses. People don't have to register that they have a secondary.
No.
suite.
But I know,
So
It
it
is,
would be really challenging.
it's a bit of the honor system. And it is in Salmon Arm as well. So, when I worked in Salmon Arm, one of the monthly things that the UB clerk would do would be going through all the advertisements for secondary suites and that to look for if there's suites getting rented out.
And if there's new ones, they'll have a building permit, so we'll know.
Yeah.
Right, so that's how they, the fresh ones.
that's Siobhan.
Through the chair, yeah, so I think the 50% fixed is fair. And I think as people upgrade and it comes online, then, we're looking for that to go and hunt people down, especially in the housing. Maybe in 5 or 10 years when we have more than 9% rentals in Sycamoose. It's something that we put our time into, but I think for the revenue that is gonna come in and the amount of strife it's gonna cause people, I'm not sure that this is a hill to die on at this point. So that's just my 2 cents.
Okay. All right, everybody else good? You got enough information there? I'm thinking we should do the 50%.
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay.
Okay,
And then the next one is our current stance on irrigation meters. So right now, there is an additional fixed fee charge for, what's in an irrigation meter. And what that irrigation meter does is that meter usage is not used then for sewer. So if they're using, 300 cubes of water, 100's for, through the irrigation meter, they only get charged 200 consumption on their sewer side, times by the 80%. So there's additional costs related to irrigation meters. So we have the reading of an additional meter twice a year, the setup costs in the system and the extra billing. But the biggest one is the additional high usage on our water system. So currently there's not a premium charged on high users. Operations has always emphasized water conservation. And currently staff does not promote irrigation meters, but we do discuss them with interested residents, like those with large gardens. We've had several put in over this past year, especially with those with people that have double lots and everything. They're interested in getting that irrigation meter put in for their additional. And then right now, just me and Daryl talking for next steps for our 2025 rate review. We want to look at the potential of a graduated consumption rate based on usage. So for example, what Vernon does is there's a rate for, your first 40 cubes, there's a almost double rate for your next, and doing it that way. So right now, where we're trying to get that high usage is if someone does want to put in that irrigation meter, because they're doing that higher usage for the irrigation, is getting that, that premium is on that fixed fee because they put extra strain on our system. And yeah, I don't know if Daryl wants to touch on irrigation at all, or if I've covered everything.
I think you covered it. I mean, it depends, right? There's different models out there that we can contemplate, and yeah, I mean, I'm coming from the corner of the room that would like to see, our reserves getting 30% in everything and the operational recovery high as it can be. But, there's some strategies.
okay. Go ahead, Siobhan.
Through the chair. Yeah, and just a different angle on this, food safety is a big issue too in Canada right now. And, and I don't know how someone's just having a beautiful green lawn or they're gardening, but the cost of groceries are going up crazy. And we actually need to encourage people to grow their own food, and that, it's not things being trucked in and, you know, coming from, so this is a hard one for me because if we've got people watering large gardens and then they're maybe selling that at the market at a lower price or feeding their own family or the canning, to penalize them for that, we gotta, there's two sides to this, you know, and I know we can't drive around and say, okay, you're watering a garden or, you know, garden and this guy's got 7 acres of grass he's mowing. But there are a lot of people in Sycamus, and I think we're gonna see a lot more where people are growing their own produce in that time. And I know we need to conserve water, but we also need to feed people. So just food for thought,
No pun intended.
right?
Go ahead, Ian.
Have we ever thought about those particularly high users, just putting them in a different category or saying it's more? I mean, if they're selling it, then I would say it's a commercial operation. I mean, if this is for personal use, then different. But I think there's some weird lines, you know, that are crossed between residential and commercial, and people running businesses out of the residential for commercial purposes that have a totally different usage on a lot of things like water and sewage and that's a line that I think we'll have to, you know, delve into. Certainly when it comes to taxation, there's a big difference between residential rates and commercial rates for good reason. So, you know, if some of these, I think we'll need to look at that. But yeah, if we're doing food production on residential lots and it's ultimately going to markets to be sold, then that is a commercial endeavor. That's not just for your own home use. If it's for your own home use, then to me, that's different. But I don't think you'd ever get up to that high water usage if it is just for your own home use. Maybe it is, maybe you're growing everything. But yeah, I think we'd have to look at what that actual purpose of that high water usage is. But yeah, if it's to run a business out of your home, then yeah, I'm sorry, it's the cost of doing business to some degree, is my opinion.
Thanks, Ian. Bianca, how many do we have secondary meters, like, or not, irrigation meters? Do we have, you know?
I want to say around 30. We have them at quite a few of the stratas. Pretty much all the stratas, they're all set up for the irrigation meters. And when we first kind of went into irrigation meters, that was the purpose of them, was for the stratas. And then we included in the bylaw that if you wanna, get the exact wording. A user of the sanitary sewer system who establishes at their cost to the satisfaction of the district that the discharge in the system is less than 80%. So that's kind of how we directed people who their water wasn't going down the drain, is get a meter put in. We've used that as an option to offset the sewer side of it.
So,
Not a ton, because a lot of people, when you actually work out the numbers, the fixed charge doesn't save them enough on the sewer side to justify it.
justify it.
Yeah.
Like some communities, like, you know, if they charge by the cubic meter, or everybody charges by the cubic meter, but the irrigation one is like, is it half or a quarter?
A lot of them there's like a separate rate for farms,
For
for
farms,
farming and that sort of setup.
yeah, but for residents, I'm just thinking for residents.
No,
Yeah, I did look at interviews and it was, I don't think I didn't even see anything in Salmon. I did, Interview does have a system.
Salmon Arm for their residential is mostly flat.
Yeah.
If you're identified as a high user, they'll switch you over to metered, but for the majority of residential, it's all flat rate. So if you let your grass go yellow and your neighbors is green, your guys are paying the same. Yeah. But that's not the way that other communities are moving. The larger municipalities, Calgary, Vancouver, they're all moving to consumption and a lot of tiered systems. That's where we're seeing a lot of tiered systems.
Mhm.
Kind of like BC Hydro does, right? Get your little alert that you're at the new rate. At least I do.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is a tough one, you know, you gotta figure, like you say, if it's not worth it, you know, if the cost of your meter and you're not gonna save. It's a tough one. Go ahead, Colleen.
And we also need to guard our water, right? So it is a tough one as far as you want consumption to come down. You don't want consumption to go up, so. Maybe a higher rate for higher consumption, you know, I like that, but at the end of the day, we want to guard our water, you know, keep consumption down.
So, from this discussion right now, I think draft the bylaw as is when it comes to irrigation meters, but, for the 2025 year, bring back some options. And especially on the potential graduated consumption rate.
Yeah, does that sound good? Okay,
Additional just draft wording. We do have people on meters. Anne Marie in our finance department has been amazing about this, highlighting people who have been having meter issues for years that need to get them replaced. So your meter is your personal property and it's your responsibility to fix it, get a plumber in when it needs fixing. We do have a handful, I would say about 15 meters that have been notorious for getting told that their meter's not functioning properly and they're not doing anything about it. So we're just wanting to add in some wording that says you get your one warning on your one bill saying, hey, your meter's not working properly. We'll estimate it based on prior usage to give an estimated read, but it's your responsibility to get it fixed. The next billing period, if it hasn't been fixed, which gives them 6 months, if it hasn't been fixed, we'll move you over to flat rate until it is fixed. So usually that ends up being a higher rate.
okay, thanks, Bianca. Siobhan?
Through the chair, what's a meter worth?
But buying a new meter,
Like if I need a new meter, so mine, $300.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
they're not, okay, they got, yeah.
we've just been having, usually people are really good. We just have a handful that are ignoring us. So we just need it in the bylaw so that we can have it in there and we can bill accordingly. And whenever we have to do estimates, like we're really good. We look back at like usually the last 3-4 years, look at their consumption, take into consideration seasonal changes and do a good estimate of where we think that they should have been at. So, yeah, so this would be changed, will be being drafted up to put into the new bylaw.
That's good. All right,
So that's water and sewer rates. Some other just changes. There's administrative fees in there. A lot of these fees we never actually get done. Like people don't usually come in and ask for paper copies of bylaws and minutes and reports. However, it does happen and we need it in there just in case. So just increasing those based on estimated printing costs. We do property tax certificates. So these are for lawyers and everything when houses are selling and stuff like that. We've been charging quite low at $35. Proposing to increase that to $75 for when we do them. Most lawyers actually pull it online and it's actually $105 for them to pull it online. And we want them to pull it online because less time they actually prefer it. So I don't really think this one would be thought increasing to 75 staff time. Land title registry charges. These are all based on land title, so just updating it to what they're currently charging us, so we can put it on the person that's requiring it, and a little bit of the staff time as well. So me and Nicole are working on that. Nicole's extremely busy, that's why we don't have exactly what these numbers are gonna be. And then NSF checks. I've been looking at different municipalities, and as they're doing full reviews of their rates and charges, they're all increasing their NSF fees. So this is if someone has a bank check come back, or usually it's checks, also our prepayments if they bounce. If it is every once in a while, employees we make errors, but if it is the error of the person making the payment, we do charge a fee. Proposing that we double that fee to $50. If council wants to discuss that, we can. It does take usually it's about an hour of staff time to deal with those NSF fees. just for processing, reversing the payment. We do up letters and all of that.
Yeah, everybody good with that?
Okay.
Hmm.
And then looking at our cemetery rates. So I had, Anne Marie actually calculated what it costs us for digging a hole and all of that and equipment and everything. We're actually okay for what we're charging for putting people in the ground. However, our plots currently, are decently low. Salmon Arm did a rate review when they opened their new cemetery. That's why they're at 1,800. They did that a few years ago when Shuswap Memorial Cemetery opened in Salmon Arm, Revelstoke as well. Enderby, Golden, Armstrong are a little bit lower. They haven't done, or I'm not sure their rationale for their rates. But the whole thing here is you pay this once when you are reserving a plot. And that's, you pay for your plot, you pay to get put in, and then that's it. And then we're responsible for maintaining the cemetery. So it's costing us about about 20,000 to do the cemetery every year. So in perpetuity, it's every plot, if we can collect a little bit more at the beginning and offset our current year costs, we don't sell a lot of plots every year. So just looking at the rates, so we have our plot, we have our care funds. The care fund actually isn't ours to cover our costs. So you only get $330 for a plot. The care fund has to get put away to cover, you know, long-term care of the cemetery. We're required to put it to reserves. So I'm thinking we need to increase our rates to at least something $1,000 mark. Really, that's up to council on where they want to see that at, but that's just some neighboring rates. Salmon and Revelstoke have done a more recent rate review.
Okay. Questions? Ready in?
Well, yeah, more just a comment. I agree with you. These are exceptionally low. And then if you take, you know, it's costing us $20,000 a year to maintain it, we should be working back from that and figuring out what, I mean, the care fund, that's just a one-time fee, or is that a yearly fee?
One time. You pay, so if you want to, if you're a resident, an adult, you want to reserve your plot, like you don't even have to be ready to go on the ground, right? Like I could buy a plot for myself today. Hopefully I'm not using it tomorrow. So like I could pay $440 and get put in the ground
20, 50 years, let's call it 100 years from now. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a one-time, this is like reserving your plot and then you'll just pay whatever it costs to dig the hole and put you in later on.
That includes us.
This does not include it. We're looking at the cost of grave liners and we can increase that as grave liners go up. This is just to reserve your place in our cemetery.
Yeah, I think that's way too low. That's not even going to be covering. I mean, if we're talking about user pay, then this is definitely not user paying for what the true cost of this would be. So yeah, I think we need to review that. When's the last time this was reviewed?
Years.
Decades? Or
Yeah, this one wasn't increased for amendments, but got moved over. So 2009. I wanna say.
Yvonne, you're next.
2009, 2010 is when this was reviewed.
okay. And then that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Yvonne.
Just through the chair, non-residents do our residents include like our Melquoft folks in Canby and Swansea and stuff? So we are encompassing those in as part of our Sycamoose people?
Sycamoose and Area E are included as residents and from what I've seen in the last 5 years that I looked at, it's only being residents.
Yeah.
Okay. So everybody, what's everybody's thoughts? Want to have a good review of it and increase it a bit?
Yeah, so because everyone's kind of a mixed bag. Do we want to propose getting closer, to Salmon or Revelstoke? Or how do you wanna, I'm just wanting some direction on that review.
Well, we want it affordable, but yeah, we do want to increase it for sure, I think. Go ahead, Colleen.
I think you should work backwards as Councillor Bailey suggested and figure out what it's costing us and then look at residents and then look at non-residents as a, like this is set up a little bit higher, right? But yeah, obviously it needs to be adjusted.
Go ahead, Siobhan.
Through the chair. And is Area E, pitching in for that $20,000 maintenance?
Currently, no.
Okay, so that may be somewhere else that we can keep our fees a little bit lower if we get a little bit of help.
Okay, go ahead, Ian.
I mean, yeah, I mean, ultimately, it should just be a wash as we go forward. I think that's where we want to get to. You're probably gonna need some time to figure out what that looks like. So are you asking just kind of for direction for this year?
I mean, to get it to a watch for how many
Right,
lots we sell in a year, I don't think you're gonna be happy with the rates. I think if anything, it's getting to, okay, what is a acceptable amount to charge that we can live with, that our residents can still afford? And that's kind of why I put the neighboring rates on, because we don't sell that many lots. Like, I think we sold 2 great spaces for adults last year. The cremate is where we're selling the most, and I mean,
right.
if we went up to seminar, that's $600 per, maybe we sell 10 of them, $6,000. We're never gonna, I don't think we'd be happy with increasing it to cover the full cost. I just don't think we'll get there.
So kind of what, if you want me to throw out a number here, my gut would say like do 60% of the salmon arm total. And what's that, about $1,100 or something, or $1,200, somewhere around that area. I think it needs to be about $1,000 at the minimum.
Yeah. Colleen?
How many spaces do we have? Like
left.
and how many are already
I can
used?
get that from Phaedra.
I think it would be, if we have an idea of whatever our inventory is, that might help us determine cost as well.
Yeah. Go ahead, Siobhan.
Through the chair, I like going to 1,000 seems pretty high. To me, this is kind of like a park thing that it's, we do need to definitely increase our prices. I don't know if this is a break-even thing for me, in my vote. It's important to the community that we have a cemetery. It's like, we don't break even on our parks. And it's kind of a sacred spot if you go out there. And there's a lot of long-term residents who are there. And I think we still need to remain affordable. Obviously, we're, at 440, we're not doing that, but I don't know. I think it's a lot of, tripling, doubling it is pretty high too. So maybe it's something that happens in phases. I don't know. I would rather see Electoral E put some money into it to help offset that 20 grand. I know that there are a lot of people in there from Campion, Malfoy. I spent some time out there. So maybe they can help us come up with a maintenance fee that I don't know what that looks like, but per head, we look at where their address is from, and I don't know how that works, but $1,000 is a pretty big increase. If we looked at Armstrong at $600 or $700, I wouldn't, absolutely. But for our residents, and maybe our non-residents go a little bit higher. I don't know if that's the way to do it, but it's a sensitive topic too, right?
Yeah, okay. I just kind of, I think, once we know how many's out there, how many we have already filled, and then how many we have left, it would give us a good idea, you take $20,000 divided by the number that's out there and give you some annual costs of what it costs to maintain them. And then see if we can, maybe we can get some money from the CSRD. I'm not sure Yalka, you had something else to add too?
Just to Siobhan's point with CSRD, like for our parks, it's always based on assessed value and stuff like that. So maybe that's a discussion that staff can begin to have with CSRD.
And further to that, we used to for probably at least 5 years where I was the CFO, we got a $750 grant made from Area E or CSRD to cover some of our costs. So maybe we can go back and look at that. I think we actually, like, I would go actually apply for a grant and aid to cover some of our costs for the cemetery.
Thanks, Kelly. Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of an exclusive use thing. It's not, in my view, like a park per se, because we don't really want to encourage people to go there and recreate and do these other things that we normally do. We're definitely not going to have a picnic or something there or something. So I just think for me, it's an important principle that if you get an exclusive use, which obviously a plot is exclusive use, you're going to be there for a long time, that somehow, obviously, we're not going to collect 100% of the cost, but I'm uncomfortable with people or the taxpayers charging or subsidizing for, a cemetery, really, because we aren't encouraging people to go out there to use it as a public space. We have all these other public spaces that we do kind of open to the public and we want people to use them. So how I view this is just, it has to have some sort of connection to the actual cost. And because people are making a choice, you don't need to necessarily this be your final resting place either. So I understand it's sensitive, but at some point we have to be cognizant, in my view, of it actually costs to run it, and then have the users try to cover a chunk of that cost, because it sounds like at this point, we've had 2 plots or, whatever the revenue is. It sounds like maybe it's like $5,000 a year, and it's costing taxpayers money, right? So we have to kind of close that gap a little bit, whatever that looks like. It's great, but
Okay,
that's just my view.
thanks, Ian. Pam?
Through the chair. I just wonder if, I mean, I agree with Ian, but I also agree it's a matter of respect and recognizing that this is a special place. So I'm wondering if we can agree to increase it, because it is low, but do a graduated increase. I don't know, maybe review it again more frequently than a decade or 2 leaving it, but just bring it up a little bit more slowly and so that it isn't disrespectful in a sense to people who, it is a beautiful cemetery. I've heard many comments about the condition of that cemetery being almost park-like, and it's an important spot for people to go. And so trying to get that balance, I guess, of increasing our charges, but not going crazy and making it feel like an affront to people who have family buried there.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Pam. You got enough information there, sir,
I'm gonna do some more number crunching.
for our next budget meeting?
Yeah.
And through the chair, yeah, and I mean, I would like to see, if it's 20 grand, I'd like to see 5 from electorally. There's a lot of Cami Melaqua folks out there that have been there some of them have been out there for 100 years. And we absolutely, need to be respectful and kudos to Daryl and his team. Our cemetery is absolutely beautiful. And you can actually go have a picnic out there. I go have sandwiches with a few people occasionally. So it is open to the public. So if you have someone there, you can go out. It's not exclusive that you need to, need a pass or have someone in there that you say, okay, I'm here to see Uncle Dan. So it is actually open. And yeah, but I would like to see, I feel like electorally could easily cover a quarter of the upkeep of it. Not so much, you know, the cost to get in, and I would like to see those prices go up, but you know, I don't think a quarter would be anything, because if you walk through it honestly, that's, you know, I think we're all one community and, but Sick Moose is paying the whole bill on this one, so I think we need to kind of share the bill too.
Okay,
And you are doing a great job up there.
okay, thanks, Siobhan. Okay, Pam, sorry, go ahead.
Question through the chair. Bianca, when was the last time the grant and aid was applied for then? You said the 750 grant.
3 years ago,
Yeah, maybe.
around 3 years ago,
Pardon me?
around 3 years ago.
Oh, okay. All right, yeah.
But it sounds like getting more of an
regular.
ongoing agreement with CSRD than just, you know, at one time or having to apply
Every year, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you.
So the next thing in our fees and charges, just looking at changing the wording around recreation fees. They're always moving, and what Jamie tries to do is base it on a cost plus 10% structure. So just right now, we have some dated rates in our current bylaw. And instead of being very specific in our rates for recreation fees, because they're so fluid, more just adding verbiage on the rate structure than the actual individual rates themselves. If that makes sense, because right now we have a little table and it's dated.
Okay, go ahead, Ian.
Why wouldn't it just be our cost? Why is it cost plus 10%?
Well, so the cost is like the direct cost of the individual program, and the 10% is just more to kind of cover a bit of Jamie's time and the administrative time behind it. So it is really trying to do our whole cost. It's just more like direct cost of, you know, paying the instructor and all of those things. Any rentals that we need and stuff like that. And then the 10% is to help cover
Admin.
our programmer.
We frequently do cost plus 10%. 10% is admin.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Siobhan.
And through the chair, our recreation fees too are really low compared to other communities. Like, we make it really easy for as much as we can for families to, you know, put their kid in dance or, you know, come out and do the PAL course. Our fees are fabulous. So that's fine.
Siobhan, everybody good with that?
Yeah, just one other question. So, are we changing the recreation fee or we're just putting on plus 10%?
Yeah, we're just, because right now there's a little graph that shows, you know, kids club, all the different things, instead of having to amend this bylaw anytime Jamie wants to change fees.
Right.
Instead, put cost plus 10% and
I see.
that way.
And because right now the fees that are in our bylaw are not actually what we're charging because we've been changed. So to have more general helps us.
Okay.
Consistent.
Got it.
All right, thanks, Bianca.
Okay, and then business licenses. So right now we're proposing no changes to the rates for business licenses. However, there is some things missing in our current bylaw for processing fees for changes during the year. So one that we ran into was the moving of a business to a different location. There's additional costs with that, fire inspection, development services time, all of that. It comes out to pretty much processing a new license. So moving a business, keeping it consistent with, it's a new license for the year, $95. And then also changes to license name, different addresses, stuff like that, a $20 fee. Just for clarity there, we had some pushback on some businesses moving around during the year and they just want clarity in our bylaw. Yeah, if anyone wants.
Okay, anybody have any comments? No, everybody good with that?
And then also just adding wording about license fees being required at time of application. What Phaedra will get down here sometimes is someone will come in, they'll apply. Sometimes they'll even ask, can I pay right now? But right now it hasn't been our standard to take payment until it's been approved. So sometimes the license goes through the whole process, it's good, it's approved, they don't come in and get it. So
It happens a lot.
It happens a lot. So just adding wording in there that the license fee is as required at time of application, administratively, it'll help a lot.
Makes sense.
That doesn't make sense.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and then, so the last one I think I have on here for discussion, is short-term rental fines. Trying to see if Nicole.
I can speak to it.
Okay. This one's just open for council discussion, and yeah, Kelly, if you would like to speak to it.
Yeah, so we kind of took a look around at neighboring communities and it's between $500 to $1,000, right? Is what the penalties are, and they're normally per occurrence per day, right? They're pretty aggressive, right? Revelstoke's is 1,000 per occurrence per day in terms of what, Kelowna's is 500. But now the provincial legislation has changed, so I think we're allowed up to 5,000 per whatever, up to amount, like, so the amount has actually increased. So I'm not saying let's be hyper aggressive, but this is just something for council to think about. We don't need to make a decision, right now, but just to know that we need to address kind of how we want to enforce and fine on short-term rentals that are not being properly advertised, or if they're being advertised without a license, and there'll be a list of things that a penalty fine would be put on there for.
Okay, thanks, Kelly. Questions? Go ahead, Ian.
What is it currently? What do we have it set as current?
We don't really have any short-term rental fines. We have a business license fine. So it's in our business license.
Oh, okay.
I believe it's,
It's $100 per occurrence is what, John, currently. Yeah,
Okay, go ahead, Siobhan.
but it's for business licenses in general.
it says if you go against the business license bylaw. So that would be, an infraction would go against the business license.
Okay, go ahead, Siobhan.
Through the chair, would someone get a warning first? Like, do we have in our bylaw that you get a warning and then you get fined, or you're just, if you're, I'm all for, I like big fines on this one, but, if someone didn't know they were breaking the law, we would assume that they would, and I know that we followed up with our short-term letters and we're catching up with getting everybody in. So would someone get a warning, or you're just getting $1,000?
John actually has his hand up right now.
Yeah, and we've already sent out warning letters
Yeah.
essentially to everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody who we think is operating one, and maybe John can speak to it. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, John.
Through the chair, I would say for the short-term rentals, everybody is getting letters. I do a lot of phone calls and letter writing just to try and get them to compliance. I assist with them getting their applications in, and in whatever way I can help Nicole to get those applications processed. So anyone that is operating a short-term rental has lots of warning before we would be even looking at fines. And from a bylaw perspective, I would like to go with the highest fine we possibly can. Because a lot of these rentals are billing out $300, $400, $500 a day. If our fines are not in excess of what they're billing, then they're not going to worry about getting a license.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, John. Anybody have any questions? Right, Colleen?
Yeah, I agree with John. I think that you're sending out letters. Everybody knows. We've been talking about this for 3 years. If you don't know about short-term rentals in Sycamoose, you don't care. So I'm with John, let's put it up as high as we can. And it will also help John. It'll help John as well as neighbors. So it's actually a good idea for the community.
Thank you, Colleen. Go ahead, Ian.
Um,
And Malcolm's.
yeah, I understand the reasoning for having a high fine. I just wonder if we should be doing it in stages. If it's every 6 months, we increase it, or, we gave them like an education year. Now we're into the fine year. So set it at 250, and in 6 months it goes up to 500 or something along those lines. I don't know, I'm just trying to think, like, our ultimate goal with all of this is to ensure compliance, right? Like we want everyone to do the right thing and register their short-term rental and get the business license and all this sort of stuff. So I guess the question is, how do we get there? It is probably a combination of incentives to comply. Like if you don't, it's gonna go up in 6 months. It's combination carrot and stick somehow. I mean, we could go in with a big fine right off the bat, but I wonder if doing it a little more graduated might get us better results. Because ultimately, all I care about is results. So I just want to throw that out there. I'm not sure if that's the case, but we are now going into the new year, I believe, right? Is when we're going to start fining people. So if we come out right off with $1,000 fine right off the bat, I wonder if that's going to be effective.
Okay, can we, Malcolm, you want to go ahead first?
Yeah, thank you. No, I think it should be a stiff fine, a minimum $1,000. And we've done the 1-year transition for awareness and education. But I think we should post that right up front and center somewhere where all the folks know that it's what the fine is and how much it's going to be. And it's not graduated. We're serious about this. You've had a year to adjust your budget and your finances accordingly. So I think 1,000 minimum, and but we should advertise that as soon as we agree what the fine is. We should let folks know right away that if they're not in compliance, it's going to be $1,000 fine.
Okay, thank you. Bianca, you?
Just looking at a couple, I haven't dug in as much as John and Nicole have. There is some communities where they have like first offense, second offense, like a smaller rate, and then second offense, I think some of them go up to third offense, where they graduate, like your first offense is $100, your second offense is 500, your third is 1,000. Just putting that on the table, there is some options there.
Okay. We also got to remember that we went out and we campaigned on looking after our hotels. And they said, you have to have a short-term rental bylaw. We'll go along with the MRDT tax, but you have to look after the short-term rentals. We've now, I don't know, we're 3 years now into it. And we have more short-term rentals in town than we know what to do with. And our hotels are hurting. So I agree, you could have a escalating fine. If the province is gonna go to 5,000, we could start at 1,000 this year. Next year's 2,000. I don't know. I didn't even go to 2,500, but I think we have to really let people know that you can't be renting short-term rentals if you're not zoned for it and you're licensed for it. And we have to keep track of these people for sure. Go ahead, Siobhan.
Through the chair. Yeah, I agree. John sounds like he's done a really good job with education. And I think these fines do need to be high. These are being run as a business. And if you do go and look, I mean, some of them are $600 a night. So if you're running a business and you're serious about it, you're going to do it right. You're going to look after your neighbors. You're going to go through the proper hoops to do what you're doing. And if you're not, we don't want you here, and if it's $1,000 a day, I guess it's $1,000 a day and you're going to stop doing what you're doing. But we shouldn't leave a lot of loopholes.
And then the other thing I could say is we have people with short-term rentals and they're looking after it and doing the right thing and registered and they're paying their MRDT tax. And we have these other people that aren't, so it's something we should really consider. Our fines should be heavy and we should stick to them. But go ahead, Ian.
No, I guess I'm not the hard ass on this one. Who would have thought? No, I totally agree. I think everyone's saying I'm happy to do what the will of council is on this, and it sounds like a heavy fine. And I guess the only thing I would say is let's just, in the first 3 months, try to, and I know everybody will try to track how many fines we're putting out, and then does that bring us compliance? Because hopefully it does. I just want to come up with the most effective system that we can to make sure that we are getting the results. Sometimes the fines are definitely one way, but some incentives are certainly another way as well. But no, I think council has expressed a very clear opinion, so I'm happy to go with it.
Okay, thanks, Ian. Malcolm, go ahead.
Just forgot to take my hand down.
Okay,
John's hand's also up.
okay. Go ahead, Siobhan.
And through Mel's point, I do think we should get a letter to short-term rentals. So if that hasn't been in their package and they've got their license and they think they're doing everything they're supposed to, I don't know how many we have, if it's 200 and is it how many do we have that have registered? That, I don't know.
Nicole could comment on it.
Yeah, so that the people that have registered and they know, so we know they know the rules. And that a letter goes out to those folks saying, you know, we're expecting compliance here. And I think the other point here is we do have the right to pull licenses if people are continuing to have a problem, we can pull those. But the people that think that they're gonna just fly under the radar and make all this money and not, you know, challenge our hotels and not give taxes back. Yeah, I don't think we have a lot of space.
Okay, go ahead there, John.
Might have lowered his hand.
Okay,
Oh,
I would, through the chair, I was actually just raising my hand to correct the provincial fine amount. They're raising it up to $3,000, not $5,000.
okay, great. Thank you, John. Pam, you had something?
Well, I'm just, we're looking at the short-term rental sites for advertising. What if it's quite possible if you've been operational for a while to not use any of those sites, right? I'm just wondering how we're identifying some of the low-flying Airbnbs because they're out there.
Go ahead there, Kelly.
Yeah, so, you know, neighbors, you know, then we'll operate on a complaint basis. So that's what we've historically been doing, is operating on a complaint basis, but now we're being proactive, right? So, and people know we're regulating it, not just here, but across the province. So that's normally where you get those type of ones, because we're not going to know everything. And there are going to be people that do side deals, and that's fine if it's not upsetting anyone, but we're trying to flush out as many of them as possible. And to comment on Ian's point on incentives, maybe this is just thinking out loud, something we can look at is a penalty, but offering a discount if they get a license by a certain amount of time after the penalty is issued, if that's what the penalty is for. We can look at ways, because our goal isn't to generate income on this, it's to encourage compliance. But it needs to be enough so people will comply. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Kelly. And then one last thing, and our bylaw is strong enough that if they don't pay and they continue to rent, it can go on their taxes.
No,
Can we change that?
no, you transfer certain things to taxes. This is not one of them. They're very specific in the charter that we can only transfer utility charges to taxes and improvements to the property, which this does not fall under.
And further to that, John will be coming forward in the new year for a different type of ticketing system, because right now, the way our ticketing system is, you actually have to deliver the ticket. So we need to modify that so that these tickets can be mailed out.
Okay,
So there are some intricacies that we need to work out in terms of ticketing and enforcing and all that type of stuff.
okay. Thank you. Yeah, anybody else? Bianca, you got enough information to keep rolling?
Yep, I think that was a good conversation. So last slide, there's more to come. So Nicole's going over all the costs and the development service rates. So we'll be bringing that back with some comparatives to other communities. But she's mostly just looking at, you know, what amount of staff time and other intricacies that make up those development service rates. We'll be drafting up a bylaw with a new formatting and a new look to it. And when it all comes together, we'll have a breakdown of all the fee changes, wording changes. Because it's gonna have a different look to it, I want council to be able to easily compare the two and understand all changes to the bylaw. Because it is gonna have a different look. You're not gonna be able to place them next to each other and have an easy read. So that's the plan and that's to come. So in January, this is what I'm gonna be focusing on in the next couple months.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Bianca. And then our last, we have the correspondence from Ralph. Is there anything, presentation or anything that's on the agenda?
Yeah, so, because Ralph came and talked to our last meeting, so I just asked him, he wanted to have another say, so I asked him to write it all down, put it in there, and of course he's here. So yeah, so if you guys have all read the correspondence, have any additional comments on it or questions?
Anybody have any comments or questions? Go ahead there, Colleen.
Just a quick one. We do have, hang on one second. Separate meters for irrigation systems already.
Yeah.
So Ralph, that's what you're asking for, separate meter
Yes,
for irrigation.
well, the reason being is, in the first 6 months of the year, our sewer bill was $25 because we had a wet spring. But in the last half of the year, our sewer charge is 250, 10 times as much, because, well, you know what our summers have been like. We have a large lot, 3/4 of an acre, we have a large garden, plus grass and shrubs and so on. So we go through a lot of water. And my issue is, because the sewage rate is 80%, we're paying an enormous amount for sewage that we're not using. Well, I'm being penalized because I'm using a lot of water, now you're charging me more for sewer when I'm not using it.
Yeah, I
And
understand.
that's why I want to have a meter for the house only and one for the irrigation system. So it's not really fair, I don't think, to be charging me for sewage when I'm not using it. And down our street, I talked to a few of the neighbors. And there's not a lot of houses on our street, I think there's 10 properties. And at least 6 of them have irrigation systems. So they're gonna be charged for sewage when they're not actually using it. And I heard what was going on, you were talking about your sewage surplus was down the last few years. I don't mind paying more for my basic sewage, but I don't wanna be charged 80% of the water I go through. To keep my yard looking nice, water a garden. And if you talk to your fire chief, you probably know that if you keep a green yard, you're not gonna have an issue like 2 mile, maybe might happen here, or happen to North Shuswap. So I like to keep my grass green, and it's for aesthetic works too. So what can we do there? The only thing I can think of is to put in another meter, so I get metered for the water and then I get metered for the house. We don't have a rental system going on in our house, we don't have a.
No, I think we all understand where you're coming from here, but I guess my question, can I finish?
You got the floor.
I guess my question to Bianca or Daryl or Kelly is, we do have some properties that do have a separate meter for irrigation, right? So this, could be a possibility, but if we start putting in meters for irrigation on everyone that's got an irrigation system, how complicated does that get for the district, or does it not? It's a meter reader, right? Meter reading.
It's a meter reading, it's depending on where the irrigation meter is set up along the line. There's some billing intricacies to it, but the big part is more the usage piece of it.
And that's why sewer is 80% to recognize there is water that goes into the ground at certain times of the
Okay, so
year.
it's already accounted. It's-
Right, but then if you
Right.
use more water outside, then that percentage will be skewed, right? So it depends on how much you water outside. So clearly Ralph does a lot more watering outside, he doesn't mind paying the water, he just doesn't want to pay the sewer for it. So that's where that irrigation meter comes in, but then there's a fixed charge, and if you do the math, you're actually paying more at the end of the day. But I guess it would be more fairly distributed,
So with an irrigation meter, sorry, you pay more at the end of the year.
depending on how much.
Depending on usage.
Okay.
Or water that's in sewer.
You go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, so water and then sewage is 80%. is that in line with? Cause I read somewhere, a lot of municipalities are doing one, right? Like 100%, whatever water you use, it's assuming it. So where are we kind of at? Or do we know? We kind of had this discussion at some point, that 80% is not the norm anymore, really.
It's a mixed bag everywhere, total mixed bag. We do reads twice a year, some municipalities do them 4 times a year, and then they have seasonality changes built in. With us, that seasonality change, like the using less water in the winter time. There's a lot of other places in Sycamoose, they're not even here in the winter time. So if you based usage on winter reads, you'd be getting nothing from other people. So like our seasonality, like every community is different based on the makeup of their community is what we're seeing. So Vernon, for example, bases the consumption rate on your 2 lowest reads per sewer. They do 4 times a year. So it's, do you know what I mean? It's kind of.
It's some are 80, some are 100, some are based on low usage years. I think we're right in the middle. Like we're not doing anything atrocious.
Right.
Okay, then it does give them the option to get another meter.
Yeah, and we do have a few that are doing that if their consumption is high enough. Yeah.
Okay, all right. You got that, Ralph? You're okay with that? Getting another meter? You're okay with getting another meter?
I don't know, I just feel like it's unfair the way the system is working for us. And I don't think that's right. Can I explain this? And I think you should have a clause somewhere in your bylaws to deal with different situations, for instance, a fire over a 2 mile area. Sprinklers were going 24/7 for a month or more there, and then people were getting charged extra for their sewer, for that water that was going to save the town or other houses or properties over there. And I think you should have a clause in the bylaw saying for extenuating circumstances where you can adjust fees for that kind of situation. Or even like a meter, you were talking about meters too that were malfunctioning. Same thing. Should have some discretion there to be able to adjust fees.
Okay, well, that's doable. I mean, that's something we haven't looked at with Brett and Daryl. So, okay. We thank you very much again for your letters and we're going through the budget and we're doing some tweaking and yeah, well, if you think you want to, reach out and get a meter, and that's doable, an irrigation meter. And yeah, we'll look at the rates again and where we go with that second meter. I'm not sure until we do our budgeting, right? That sound fair?
Yeah, nothing's been finalized yet.
Yeah, and we're just going through the process right now of budgeting, so it'll take a little bit longer, early in the new year, we'll have some answers on what we're gonna do with that. That good? Everybody good with that? Okay. Great. Anything else? We'll go ahead and adjourn. Recommended that the District of Sycamoose Select Finance Committee meeting for December 13th, 2023 be adjourned at 12:40. Oh, I know. Siobhan.
And yeah.
I have a seconder. Malcolm, all in favor? Carried. Okay, thanks, Malcolm. We'll see you soon.
Aren't we late for our next meeting?
Take an average.
1 o'clock, Malcolm.
And it's data and they determine an average. How hard was that?
Not sure.
Right here,
1 o'clock, Malcolm, we'll start the whole one.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'm 3 hours difference here, but okay, 1 o'clock.
Okay.
No,